Are we recording? Thank you. Okay. Call the meeting to order at 6:30. And a reminder to everyone who's here, the meeting is being recorded. So please be respectful of each other, both when you speak as well as when you are listening. Is there anyone here for open session? Okay, Debbie?
I would just like to, do you want me to come up to the table, or can I just?
Whatever makes you
yeah.
comfortable.
I just wanted to make a comment.
Introduce yourself for the record.
Debbie Chamberlain, 7 Laurel Street. Recently, we had to call the ambulance, and we live on Laurel Street, which, as we know, is on your roads plan. And my daughter was rushed to the hospital, and the ambulance couldn't go over 19 miles an hour on our street. And once it got to the center of town, that's when it was dirt. It was able to go 42 there and over 70 to Worcester. So apparently time was of the essence, and that's a public safety issue. And I was very dismayed to hear that our roads have now been pushed off another 4 or 5 years. We had about 50 people in this room last time, and when the plan was rolled out, and we've patiently waited our turn, and we thought we were another year or 2 years out. And we were gonna apply for the ARPA money, and the previous administration had said, no, that's just gonna accelerate the schedule. Lombard's part of the plan, it's just gonna move everything up. So all the residents in our neighborhood were counting on, hopefully next year, because the road is seriously barely passable right now. I don't know when the last time the DPW has looked at the road at all, but with this rain and everything, you seriously cannot drive on either side of it. It is a public safety issue. And I understand that, you know, main roads obviously are taking priorities, but it's a little unsettling that we sat in this room and went over the plan, and now that plan's changed, and we're at risk for our safety in that neighborhood because it's not a main road. So I really would ask that you review that, and any consideration, anything that can be done to make it passable. It is really, really in poor shape, and I know other roads are, and I wasn't asking to jump ahead, but I don't appreciate that the plans have changed and main roads have become a priority over ours as we've waited, you know, to come through this cycle.
Nathan?
I can speak to that, Deb. Thank you very much for coming out today. For those that haven't seen it, I do have the roads plan up on the TV. I plan on presenting this likely at the next meeting, but it is publicly available. Dogwood Road North and Laurel Street and Geordie Lane were unfortunately moved to FY27 in the director's most recent 5-year plan proposal, but that was mostly because of the condition of New Westminster Road. I understand wholeheartedly where residents are coming from when they come in, as I'm sure you are as well. We all want the best public ways in the shortest time frame, but unfortunately we can only do so much with the money allocated. This year there were some additional monies passed in the state budget for communities with substantial road miles, so we'll know more about if that's gonna help us out in the coming weeks. And if it does, then yeah, the plan would alter and things would move forward. And we're always hoping for grants and that kind of stuff and opportunities, but unfortunately, right now, these plans are as much of a forecast as anything else, and that's what we're kind of guessing at right now, when our soonest availability will be. We'll send him down to do some patchwork, but
It's beyond patchwork. There is no road. And they started the deterioration more rapidly when they put the millings. We were the first one, and it didn't stick. So part of it stuck, and now it's just, I would ask you to please drive down, at least Dogwood North. If you can make it further, great. But kids can't ride their bikes. It's extremely dangerous for motorcycles. And I would ask why that we were pushed. What became so much more important that happened on New Westminster that pushed that scale and pushed them ahead? Should we apply for ARPA money as the other roads have done, or
that's
is
gone.
that
There's no
gone?
more opportunities for
I mean,
ARPA money.
I just don't understand why we got pushed so far.
It's a heavily traveled road, like that's,
Okay, well,
That-
guess what, the 300 people that live in that neighborhood pay their taxes as well, and we've waited our turn. And we're at risk now, and our safety's equally as important to the people on those main roads.
But Debbie, with all due respect, the condition of our roads in the 10, 11 years I've been on the board, okay, this has been one of the major topics.
I know.
They were allowed to, number one, deteriorate. Two, money has always been a factor in terms of this town, revenue, lack thereof.
I know, and we waited our turn, but now we're being
But
moved.
what I'm trying to say is the money we have gotten, a lot of it has come from grants that the DPW have found, et cetera, or the town administrator. In the past, the select board has asked for a 5-year plan from the DPW. And at one point, the DPW got, listed the road as far as primary, secondary, et cetera, only because somewhere we had to start repairing these things. And unfortunately for you, and you're not the only one living on another road that is just as bad, but the priority are the main roads that are most heavily traveled. And when what little money we have disappears very quickly when you're dealing with that. So that, it's frustrating, I understand totally, but,
When you want your daughter be taken away in an
no,
ambulance,
but
they
I'm
can't
trying to say,
drive
you,
there.
I'm trying to
That's-
say without,
And then to
with,
hear that.
Debbie, I'm trying to
you're
say
not
with all
even-
respect, there are also people living on other roads, some of them are probably in worse shape, waiting,
I know,
and nothing
but you
gets
had a
done,
plan,
so-
so what changed on New Westminster that
Nothing has
pushed them
changed in
ahead?
my-
It's the amount of people that not only, it's not necessarily the people that live there, it's the amount that it's used. So if you have a road that has 3,000 people going down every single week on it compared to a road that has 100 people driving over every week, the wear and tear on it is so much more substantial, and the deterioration of it is so much quicker. And it, because of some of these roads, the lengths, actually most of our roads, it's the length of road. When you have, it's $1 million to fix. Every year, we only have X amount of dollars, so if we allowed certain roads to stay where they are and we don't shuffle, not that your road is not important, but this road, because the amount of cars that are going up and down it, will be totally impassable. Not that yours isn't, but now we
Ours has
have
been.
3,000 people that can't go anywhere because it's impassable. Not that your 100 people aren't important, and I understand what you're saying, but there's only so much money.
I know, I'm just upset because we got pushed now, and it is a public safety issue in that neighborhood, and has been. And we have patiently waited, you know that this room has been filled with over 50 people. And when I tell them what the outcome of this conversation is, that this has been altered, you may see an increase in that, so, I mean.
But ahead of you is New Westminster, and
But
then
it
Brigham
wasn't.
Ferry.
That's what I'm saying.
So
they
But I'm
weren't.
just saying,
So
New
it's
Westminster,
It's changed.
yeah,
When did it change?
I'm assuming this
potentially
year.
every year.
Yeah,
Because please
It's
read
just
the
as-
notation at the bottom of this
So-
and almost every road's plan.
So it's basically, you know, as another year passes, if another road is in much worse shape, is that how it's prioritized?
stuff gets shifted around, but the problem with, I think the reason why New Westminster got shifted on there is, think about how many other roads only go, so it's not only New Westminster and the people that go from, like, say, Westminster to the center of Hubbardston, but also all those little cul-de-sacs and all those little side streets that come off it. So now you're on top of all that, so now you add the amount of people that it's affecting. You know, like Bemis,
I'm
Hellfree,
not
all
saying
those,
these
the
roads
Pine
are,
Crest.
you know what, I'm not trying to compare roads and, you know.
No
Well,
one-
that's, but that's what
us
this does,
But-
and that's why you unfortunately got
My last
shifted.
conversation with Ryan, right before he left, and it was when the ARPA money in Lombard, and it accelerated our roads, and, I mean,
but another thing
I
that,
understand your theory,
Yeah.
but if that's the theory, we're never gonna get paved, we're never gonna get service, and I am telling you, it is a safety issue. You can ask the police, the fire, they have all said it, and we've patiently waited, but I don't know that putting this off, I mean, something bad is gonna happen, and kids should be able to ride their bikes. I know Pinecrest, many areas of that have been paved, and that's the same situation as our
But
neighborhood.
another concern
Really?
that has come up,
I
Debbie,
live in Pinecrest.
if I may, okay, that has affected changes at time, okay? Is the limitation of the money that we have and how it's used. And the DPW gentleman has come before us, as recently as maybe 2 years ago, explaining, for example, why one road might be put ahead of another one, that it's cheaper to do two roads that are related,
Sure.
connected,
Yeah.
with the money, better spending that money that way than to do two different roads in different places. And that's a matter of economics, and it's a matter of, the amount of money we have in our budget, what we have for grants in a given year.
Can we get maintenance
And-
in? There's like,
in a given year.
seriously, you cannot, it
We
is
got
not
like 3
possible,
dudes
right?
on
Yeah.
DPW, like, that is it.
And Director
Like-
Brown really was
Right.
hoping for that debt exclusion a couple years ago. That would have
We all
done
were.
a number.
I know, but then, you know, you talk about the strap grant, up next one, you know, hopefully you can do some other main roads. Well, when do we fit in and when do we start getting pushed off?
Honestly, the amount of money that everything is costing, roads may stop at some point, because we may not have enough money to have, with the strap grants only go so far. You know, the school keeps asking for more, the DPW keeps asking for more, everybody keeps asking for more, there's only so much money in the pot. And it's a scary thought, but things are gonna stop if this keeps going the way it is. So I don't wanna sit here and throw my hands up in the air, but that's like, at this point, we're trying to come up with a plan to get things accomplished in a timely
I
fashion
respect-
and
I
make
do.
everything work. And it's unfortunate that people like you are stuck in these
When I see my
spots.
daughter and her life is at risk before my own eyes, and we've waited and waited, and I don't know that that road's gonna make it another year.
Mhm.
I really don't, but, I mean,
But-
it is what it is, there's nothing we can, I don't know if milling it would be better, quite honestly.
No, it needs it needs to be done,
is.
the whole thing
I don't
needs
know
to be
when the
done.
last time you drove it, but it is.
And I don't want you to get the wrong impression either, we as a board are extremely sensitive to the condition of our
I know.
roads, it's a
And
major problem in this
I
town.
understand, I've worked
So that-
at the DPW, I've worked for the town, I
Yeah.
understand how it all works, and I am trying to be patient, but when I just learned that it was pushed because of another road, and we're pushed 3 or 4, it's just not gonna make it.
Well, you're on what, 27, so actually that would start in 26 though, correct? Not that that makes it any better.
I'm telling you,
But-
it's
Because
not
we're-
gonna make the winter, there's no way. It's
Well, the snow fills in the potholes.
only for a short time.
I know, that was my theory,
It is-
is like
it
on
is
our road, I'm like,
honestly
if
our-
you put enough snow in it.
That's the one thing we do like, but anyway, I just wanted to express my concerns about it, and I appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you
Me?
for that.
Can I ask
Heather?
2 questions? You don't know if we've ever had in the past a outside consultant do a study, like under a community compact cabinet grant or anything like that, of all the different roads ranked?
Not off the top of my head,
Not
it's
to my-
something that Travis
I
and
don't remember it in the 11 years I've been here.
It's something Travis and I have talked about, so once the community compact.
If and when?
If and when that opens
Yeah.
back up,
Okay.
that there are a number of projects that we will consider, that being one, but no matter what, even knowing like, oh, this is rated a 7,
You still
and that's,
need
it's bad, we still need the money.
Yeah.
And I feel awful for, like, we do care, like,
I know,
and.
and I understand it, and that's why I'm not banging down your door, but to hear 3 or 4, like, it's just not passable.
We don't have the money, we just don't
So,
have it. You can't get blood from a rock. You
I know, but you're putting the money that you had for that somewhere else,
I'm
and
not,
that's
I'm
why
just-
I'm upset.
Can we,
Cause you moved on the list.
Yeah.
I do understand.
I've
your
waited
thing.
my time.
Okay, I think we need to limit now and get moving on with the business for the night, so is there any last minute?
yes, really quick. So, is it possible, Nate, that in one of our upcoming meetings that isn't super busy, if we could have Travis come in and kind of explain, you know, how he looks at these roads, and
Yes.
even explain those pieces, and hopefully by then we'll have solid numbers on, you know, definitive chapter 90 and any others.
Yeah, that
State
will
funds.
be within the next 2 meetings, cause
Okay.
you'll know that you've never seen that 5-year road
Correct.
plan before. So
Okay.
that's because we're gonna be presenting it at an upcoming meeting.
So at least we can have Travis come in, he can explain, cause we can all try our best to explain what he's thinking, but he's gonna do
No,
it better than us.
I mean, it makes sense, I understand, but to be pushed down further is very unsettling.
And that's understandable too, okay.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you. Alright, we're gonna then move on from open session to announcements.
Alright,
Take it.
on to
Are we
some,
aren't announcements down in 5 or do they move?
Nope.
Do I not have, this is the printed out agenda,
Oh, they're
am I
fine.
losing my
Oh.
mind?
I don't have
Nope.
announcements.
Oh, I'm so used to doing it right after open session, I didn't even notice that.
Wanted to give our friends the opportunity to,
My bad.
It's good, cause I'm not ready for that section.
Well, my bad, okay.
okay, we'll wait, hold on, we'll put the fun stuff aside.
Alright, we'll move to, first item, item 2, public hearing, poll petition for Hale Road, and, here for National Grid, right?
Yes,
Is Abdel Nabat.
yes. Hi, my name is Adele, with National Grid Electric at 939 Southwest Cutoff in Worcester. Here on behalf of National Grid, requesting to install a pole and on Hale Road, near the property 55 to correct the sag of a long span. It will really help the customer as well at 55.
And is there anyone here in regards to this? Are there any questions from the board?
So this is gonna be a new additional pole?
Yes, it's gonna be a mid-span pole.
Any questions?
No, I don't have
Okay, then, we could get a motion to approve, the petition by National Grid.
Yeah, so moved.
So,
I think we have to be a little more specific
Oh,
in
do
that,
we,
Katie.
is it reading?
Yeah, I gotta
Let-
find the
I don't
right
have
spot,
that.
hold on.
Okay, you got the right spot.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition by Mass Electric Company, DBA National Grid, for the, let's see, location of poles, wires, and fixtures, including necessary sustaining, protecting fixtures along and across the following public way, Hale Road, National Grid, 1 SO pole, and on Hale Road beginning at a point approximately 2,830 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Mayo Road and Hale Road, install 1 SO mid-span service pole to correct sag and long service span number 307-86226, July 7th, 2023.
motion made
Second?
and second. Discussion, any questions? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
it. Yes.
Yes, opposed? Seeing none, motion's passed.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir, and sorry, that was
Good
my
night.
bad,
Thanks.
Thank you.
that you had to sit through the other part.
Wasn't too long.
Item 3, the Quabbin Regional School District. Before we actually start the presentation, I would like to ask the board, at the recommendation also of the town administrator, since there's no one here for the appointment, that we table that part of the discussion for the next meeting. Yeah, so that any of these people who are interested,
Were they invited?
yes,
Oh, because I spoke to one today and she said she hadn't heard. They
I was
just
under the
submitted-
impression
we were
that
under
they
the
were
impression they were all invited.
I will ensure that
Oh.
they,
Okay, I wouldn't have come.
Okay.
I thought you wanted to visit us. Well,
Got one thing off the list.
Yeah,
So-
one thing off the list.
so moved.
thank you.
Yes.
So, seeing no objection, so we'll table item D, okay?
Okay.
For what, let's go for the next meeting
next
so we
week on
can
the
take care
21st,
of
yeah,
it,
I
alright?
will,
Make sure
I'd
that
like to
they're-
introduce, superintendent, the interim superintendent of Quabbin, Colleen Muha.
See that?
And-
There you go.
Perfect.
Nice.
And I brought our director of buildings, grounds, and school safety, Kevin Clark, with me.
Kevin,
Yep.
nice to meet you both.
He has a much easier last name to remember, so thanks for having us.
Yours is more memorable.
Now it will be, right, Heather?
Yeah, I have my notes.
Great. So I
So
don't.
will turn it over to you
Okay.
to open up.
I asked Nate if we could get on the agenda just so I could introduce myself and meet you. We had that opportunity last Thursday, but I'm sort of doing a round to all the local select boards so you can put a name with a face and, establish some communication. So We've talked a little bit about having some more frequent meetings with our town administrator teams, throughout the year, so I think we've shared some ideas back and forth. We're looking forward to that. Kevin and I had we had a situation sort of arise where we realized we had a gap in our procedures. So sometimes towns may apply for like a greener community grant, right? And then they're doing some work, or they wanna have some work done within our schools. And so we did not really have any operating procedures for when we have that partnership with our towns. So we initially requested to come so we could share sort of a draft of what we were thinking in regards to that. So if you'll sort of humor me, I'd love to kind of put this on the table and share this with all of you. Again, it is a draft. We brought it to New Braintree so far. We intend to bring it to all of our towns and receive feedback so that it's something we all agree to. So you will see on there that this is not a procedure that we expect to really utilize very often, but it would just happen when we have maybe some grant funding or things like that. So we would like to be as proactive as possible. So what we're saying is, when you're thinking even of applying for a grant, we have a certain level of expertise, especially in regards to our facilities and grounds and buildings, that could help you with not just grant writing, but the project overall, right? So we're asking that sort of step one is either meeting with a team of us, myself, Mr. Clark, Mr. Walsh, our technology director, so that we can all be on the same page and kind of talk through whatever the project is that's under consideration. And then we would assume, you know, perhaps a grant would be submitted, or we decide to move forward with the project. But that prior to the funding, that we would determine sort of like I think Kevin calls it a pre-construction meeting, if you will. So where we're sitting down and we're saying, okay, what is our checklist of things that we need to do? Who's responsible? What's our scope and sequence? How much time is this going to take us? What are the days that we're going to have someone in the building and working? How will we review the project? Who's responsible? And are there any additional funding costs, that kind of thing? And so some of the things that we've kind of put in place are, for us, we would like to have our school personnel on site whenever someone is coming into our buildings and doing work. It really benefits everyone because we have, again, that level of expertise, you know, so on and so forth. And then we, when possible, would like our project work to be scheduled at a time that doesn't interfere with the learning environment. We understand sometimes that may not be possible, but we want to limit that impact to our kids' education as much as possible. That the work would be scheduled when we have our personnel available. So here at Hubbardston, we're pretty lucky because we have a first shift and a second shift. So we have a longer time frame during the day. And then if the project were to occur outside of regular working hours, or if we needed to staff it with additional personnel, that we would have an agreement that we would pay our folks for being there, that the town would agree to pay our folks for being there. We don't anticipate this happening, but we had a situation in the past where something came up, it was emergency, it was late on Friday night, and so then we had to call our staff in to address the emergency on site, which they could do because they understood the facilities and what the problem was. And that is just, you know, something we didn't have planned in our budget. So again, we don't imagine that would happen very often.
Excuse me?
Yeah, sure.
My name's Peter Walker. And should I hold questions till you're done through this and ask them at the end?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that would be great, I should
All
have
right.
stated
Sorry
that.
to-
Thank
sorry
you
to
for
interrupt.
clarifying, no,
Yes.
that's perfect, thank you. Another thing that we realized was when we're doing these projects, it's really important to make sure that our fire, our police, our highway, depending on the project, are aware of the project and they know when it's happening. In this case, we needed some support, so it just ensures that we're kind of all on the same page. And the last bullet actually came from the New Braintree Selectmen. They said it would be really great if on our buildings, we posted up an emergency contact list, so if something were to happen outside of school hours, someone's walking by, you know, whatever, they know exactly who to call, based on that project. So then, step 3 would be that we would provide the access to our building and grounds to ensure that we're all lockstep, we know what's happening. And then we would almost do like an after action or an after project review together. Within 7 days, that's when I'm sure we're creating our punch list, we're talking about what went well, so that moving forward, when we do these projects together, we can tweak, anything that happens. And that really is it. Kevin is our contact for anything to do with building, grounds, school safety. Andrew Walsh, is our tech director, but if it's a building project, even with technology, Kevin would still be the contact, and he would pull in any appropriate, personnel from Quabbin that can help with the project, so. Did you wanna add anything, Kevin, before we take questions?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of the same as any typical construction project would be handled. It's the same as when we did the roof next door. We did the same steps for that. The instance that kind of provoked this was a little different, where our people were not actually on site when the project happened, and things weren't handled correctly. Let's just put it that way.
Here?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Do we often see funds come from a grant that the town's applied for on the school's behalf?
Green communities.
Yeah, you guys just completed one in your school last year when you did a lighting upgrade.
But even the lighting upgrade, so that didn't actually benefit the town directly per se, because it reduces the electrical use, which reduces the cost, but that's through the district, it's not the town paying the electrical bill off the side. So I guess my only feedback is, the only thing that concerns me is the piece down below, which is, you know, if it's after hours, or beyond regular working hours, that the town be responsible for paying for it, so it's very hard for the towns to get grants in the first place. Green communities are just as rare as anything else. So it's always a wonderful opportunity when the town's willing to say to the school, hey, you know, this is something that'll benefit you guys, and instead of us using the $135,000 or $280 for our benefit, we wanna use it for the school. So sometimes, I don't know if that comes across as town friendly on that piece.
Well, and I appreciate that, 100%. What we envision, of course, and I think you can imagine this as well, is that obviously we want the project to happen during working hours, right? This would probably only likely come into play if there were an emergency or something, problematic happened. We don't envision it happening, because if we do all the steps above it, we've taken care of all of those things. But what we just wanna articulate is that when an emergency occurs, if it were to happen on a weekend, we pay our people time and a half, double time, things like that. And that's not necessarily an expense that we've planned for in our budget.
We didn't
Do you know
plan
what
for
I'm
it in our
saying?
budget either.
I understand.
No offense, I'm just like right back at you.
But at the same instance, if you're gonna do a project like that and you're gonna be doing after hours work or weekends, you did plan for it. So as part of
Right.
your green communities, you would have budgeted for that overtime rate or a weekend rate. So
Well,
it's not
she
gonna
was
be-
saying emergencies.
Correct, so if you're actually planning a project that something happens, and then, so say you're doing something on a Friday, and they did something incorrectly, that trips out on a Saturday or a Sunday, that falls back into the project, it shouldn't fall back on the school, cause the project shouldn't fall back on the town, it should fall back on your contractor. So the chances of that actually happening in this scenario for you guys is very slim. Cause we run a second shift, so most of the projects that you guys are gonna do in that building can be handled on first and second shift. If it's something that has to happen on an overnight or something like that, 'cause it's a major electrical tie-in or something, again, that should be booked into the project. Because that's typical construction, just like the road work you're doing out front. If you're doing after hours, you're paying your details, you're paying your union guys all different hours, so it's nothing out of the ordinary, and it's nothing that we're looking to point fingers at you and say, our guys leave at 10, you're paying me after 11. It's nothing to do with that. It's just standard construction practice. Same with every road project you do in town or anything else. It's nothing different. So if it's something that has to happen overnight as part of the regular schedule of the project, or something that happens on the weekend as part of your regular scheduled project, you're already paying rate and everything else for all your other contractors. So we're not saying anything different, saying we need to be paid, but they don't. But if it is an emergency due to that project, which has nothing to do with us, then absolutely it shouldn't come across to us.
And this is just for these kinds of projects, this isn't for like, you know, just like random stuff that just breaks.
No,
No, this is
we're-
just
we're-
specifically
we're
for
in-
these kinds of projects.
We're in, on a regular week, my guys are probably off hours, I would say, maybe 3 times between all the schools we have every week. And we've never back charged or anything, guys are either salary, or I'm in on all sorts of hours, or whatever it is, but we've never charged for any of that stuff. In the winter time when it was very cold, my guys were on 2-hour cycles, checking every building. We don't charge for any of that stuff, we're just saying when it has something to do, when it's not an uncontrollable, it's a controllable, and it's something to do with a project, say a green community, something else like that, and it's a misstep, cause that's
Okay, so
basically where
planned
this came from.
project,
It was a planned project and there was a misstep that should not have happened, which caused us to have to go and rectify it, which shouldn't have happened as well. Is kind of the way this came from.
For clarification, from me primarily, I guess, when I'm reading this, I'm curious as to, excuse me, as to what constitutes, or what's the line in the sand that constitute the project you're talking about, as opposed to, this is why I want clarification. In our situation with the school here, anything that's under $10,000, we have to do. So we're gonna be subject to all of these things, we're dealing with a boiler right now, et
Anything
cetera.
over $5,000
Yeah, it's
you have to do, not anything under
Okay.
10,000.
I thought it was 10, okay.
No, it's
It's five.
Well,
Anything
in that
over-
category, is that considered a project, and therefore we would still be restricted by all these things, even though it will fall in our lap to cover the whole thing?
No, I think the difference.
If it was, again, say, let's use for example the boiler project, there's no reason honestly that can't be done between first and second shift, which you're going to prefer to do it that way as well, cause you're gonna save money on your labor rates and everything
Mhm,
else.
mhm.
You're already into union by doing the boiler,
Mhm.
you're gonna be under prevailing wage, so it'd be more advantageous for everyone to do that during first and second shift
Mhm.
as opposed to off shift on a third shift, so no, it wouldn't be.
And I would aim to not do work at night, like that's,
It's more of like an emergency,
yeah, this is an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Okay,
And again, only an emergency that pertains to that, like a green community project or something,
Yeah.
our regular emergencies are our issue.
okay.
Can you
Thank
clarify bullet number 5? So fire department, police department, highway departments to be consulted with safety procedures, fine. But, and be available for emergencies during project work. So theoretically speaking, you call 911, whoever the relevant party is, they're gonna show up. Are you talking beyond that?
No.
Okay.
Just notify them that the project is happening, especially if it's something that, we could, We could have
The reason that
something.
line was put in because of this project we were talking about, nobody was aware, to be honest with you, what was going on in the building, cause it was arranged by someone else who didn't notify anybody, so when the emergency happened, people doing the job actually didn't know who to call,
Okay.
so that's kind of how this.
So you're trying to cover your
And it's
bases on
snowball.
Yeah,
communication.
this wasn't our town,
Exactly.
correct? Not our town, okay, just making sure.
We are
Just
very
clarifying.
trying to tighten up communication.
Staffing, you mean staffing that fall under your title, or the maintenance end of it, correct? Grounds, maintenance, custodian, they'd be handling most of this, is when you're talking about staffing on site?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the concern with that is that, again, this project that happened, a water line was snapped.
Yeah,
But there was nobody on site that could've shut it off, cause they didn't know,
where it was.
right, and the person that arranged it wouldn't have known anyway.
Yeah.
So that was our concern, to make sure we can fix the situation, or
Yeah.
cut the situation before it's worse,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah,
Mhm.
understood.
Massive flooding in a school.
Indoors? Outdoors? It wasn't, oh, God.
Again, glad not our school. Not that it should
So
happen.
Kevin, while
We're still
I
paying for it.
While we have you, I would like to ask one question on the record.
Oh, and
Did
you
it,
didn't, because again, this is exactly what I was saying.
Yeah,
That is the contractor's responsibility.
oh, 'cause they broke it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
so everything, when, I used to run a lot of construction projects, and the first thing that you do, obviously, is you get your certificate of liability insurance with your contract, right?
Yeah.
So, once you have your pre-construction meeting, go over who's responsible for everything, when something like that happens, 100% the bill for our people's time, the repair on it, everything, went
Well, if
directly
they,
back to him.
if they were
and instantly-
negligent in causing the emergency, they are responsible.
100%.
Right.
Yep. So,
That's really what we're talking about in a
Yep.
nutshell.
Kevin, quick question on another topic before we move on. Have the parts for the clock arrived?
They have not arrived,
Alright.
but it is ordered, yes.
Do they have an
Actually-
ETA on that?
Mr. Brett,
No, it's
Grego
the-
will be happy to hear.
Yes.
The
Be
update.
happier if you had E ETA.
The update.
I'll be happier if the clock company would give us one.
Ah, yeah.
So our intention with this document is just to visit the other select boards, get feedback and input, and then, when we land on a final copy, we'll send it out to them.
And just the topic of your clock too, just so you're aware, that is over $5,000, what the school committed to paying for that. Is it's not as simple as just replacing a motor and stuff, there's a piece of plexiglass on the inside pointed like this, that's above that, so the electrician has to build staging all around that, just in order to get in there to do the repair safely, cause I will not put my guys on it, cause it will not hold weight. So the clock parts alone were $4,200, I believe, and then I gotta get an electrician in, then I gotta build staging. So again, that should have been a project that went back to the town because it was over 5,000. But Cheryl and I committed last year that, we're just gonna take care of this and get it done. So, that's where that is.
Is, how often does this clock break? Do you,
I can't tell you, I've only been here 2.5 years, and from my understanding, it was during the, it was during the
so it never
project.
worked properly?
No, it did,
For a while?
but I don't remember it recently.
Okay.
It's a horrific design, the front
Yeah.
fascia on that, you have the hands that go around, there's nothing protecting it from the weather. So
Oh,
all
that's-
year
that's
long,
your
you've got
issue.
water and ice going in,
This is
Can
New
you
England.
getting on the
put
motor and
something
So
around
it's
everything
built,
else.
built for a southern school then, southern tower, not a
kind of-
northern tower.
They get tropical storms in the
That's
south,
kind of
let
what
me
the
tell
guys
you.
were saying to do.
Yeah,
So,
understood, yeah.
Well, yeah, 'cause one like doesn't even have the hands on it, one side, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
those were ordered too.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't remember it.
We greatly appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing to work in.
Anyone have any, do you have any questions for us? As I asked the board, do you have any more questions for the superintendent? No?
I guess I wanna understand what the creation of this document was meant for. I mean, what drove this document? You're talking about non-negotiables, it seems very contract-like. I guess what's driving it, what's the overall intent of it?
I think the overall intent is to increase communication, but also to ensure that, we are managing the access to our buildings, by outside vendors, so that things are not happening when our staff is not there.
Well, when you put something like non-negotiables in the document, that sends up a red flag for me, that's strong verbiage. And, you say non-negotiable, project work will be scheduled at a time that does not interfere with the learning environment. And then, I think you said that was flexible, right? You say it's non-negotiable here, but then you said that's flexible if there's an emergency situation.
The reason we have the steps prior to that, right, are that we would establish in that time if it's realistic to do that work. There may be work that has to happen during the school day that can't happen otherwise. I can't think of an exact situation. I doubt it would happen unless there was a problem with the project, to be honest with you, because most of our projects should be able to be completed, as Nate sort of said. We don't want people working after hours. We
Right.
would want them done during the day, right? So we might schedule something to happen in summertime if it needed to happen during the day, things like that, or over a school vacation week, things like that. So we imagine that that pre-construction meeting is going to determine all of those conditions along the way.
Okay.
And for a prime example, during your roof project, when certain parts of that roof are being adhered, part of it was, made a lot of noise when you were doing the riveting and stuff like that. We forecasted that in the project on the dates that we didn't have classes on that section. So we said you can work in this section on certain dates type of thing, that's kind of what that's
So
referring
these are ideal situation guidelines for projects that you wanna see.
And this will help us as well, because when I first got here, there was a ECI was doing that light project over there. I really didn't know what was going on. It took some time to put together who's who. So having this and having that outline will help on our end as well. The emergency stuff isn't as favorable, but we do have to safeguard certain things, so. As long as it's only for emergencies, then I don't see any problem with it.
Well, we push it back onto the contract.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, here's your bill.
Anyone else? Do you have any questions for us or anything? Or anything else you would like to say since you're introducing yourselves to us too?
I don't think so. Do you have anything else, Kevin, on this? No? I think that, do you wanna talk about the chiller?
We do wanna talk
Yes,
about
we
the
do.
children.
Okay. So you are welcome to start. I would just love to listen and hear where you're at.
Do you
and-
have an opinion on what I sent you?
Well, I would like to make sure I fully understand it. So, would you like me to share what I think my interpretation is?
I would
or
like you
could
to share what you think your
Okay.
interpretation is, yes.
All right, so, based on the meeting last week and the documents and the conversation that, Mr. Goudreau and I have had together, I think there are a couple concerns, but one of the concerns, and I wanna make sure, please correct me if I'm incorrect, this is why I'm asking. One of the concerns was around having a loan that sort of fluctuates based on, student enrollment. So that's one worry. The other concern was around if some of the towns pay upfront and other towns take out a loan, if I'm a town who's able to pay upfront, then that appropriation and fluctuation doesn't impact me because I pay at the time of the project. Whereas the other towns then, are faced with that fluctuation and paying according to student enrollment. So for me, I felt like those were the two big concerns, but if there are other big concerns, let me know.
Well, one of the major concerns that came out of the meeting that everyone but Mr. Frago were able to make, at least came across to me anyway, was that what our major concern is we had a specific amount that we were gonna be financially responsible for, yet because of the regional charter or agreement, it allows the fact that it's gonna be different every year based on the number of kids you have. This was we were the only select board that showed up and town administrator of the other town, nobody came, so we weren't able to do anything officially. But I'm speaking for the members who are here. The only one I don't know how they felt about it would be Chris, but that was our major concern and still is, which is why we're looking into doing a loan.
Are you done?
Yeah,
Madam Chair?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense. And I think I brought this up at our meeting. You have a fixed price to install a chiller. And it shouldn't have anything to do with the population of the students. I understand it, I haven't read the agreement between the regional agreement, but, I mean, this is part of a capital item for that school. Because the population goes up the following year that we bid on this, or you bid on this job for the fixed price on this unit, the unit price didn't go up the following year, but the population did. What does that have to do with the original price of the unit? That doesn't make sense.
So my understanding, so I told Nate I'd try and do at least a little research
Yeah.
on this. So it has been over 12 years since we've done a project like this, where the towns have, shared responsibility, and it would only happen when we're doing something at the middle high school. Typically, if it's Hubbardston, you're just responsible for Hubbardston, Hardwick's responsible for their elementary school, so on and so forth. So I am not sort of justifying, I'm just gonna give you sort of the background, right? So, we can provide, and we would like to, this was in an effort to be collaborative with our towns, to be honest with you, to say, hey, would you like us to do the borrowing? Because if we borrow all together, then it could potentially get you a better rate, so on and so forth, right? So that was the good faith effort. And then, some of the towns decided that, well, they had the money, could they just pay up front so they didn't have to borrow and incur the, interest, right?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's ever happened that way before from what I could see. So this is obviously new to me, but it's somewhat new to the district as well. So our regional agreement says that when we incur expenses like this and we go into this contract, that in order for it to be fair, and so I'm just gonna ask you to take a step back for 1 second, when we ask towns to pay, we want you to pay for the students that are in that building. We don't feel Hubbardston should have to always pay more because, you're the bigger town, or we really wanna try and nuance it so that it is appropriated fair to the number of students you have enrolled in our district, which is why each year when we go to budgeting, your percentage can change, right? But when you're borrowing, to your point, that's tricky because you wanna know what you're planning for. So, I think what I'm interpreting from what Nate sent to me was, even though it is mapped out in the regional agreement like this, could we think about, doing an intermunicipal agreement, which would be really a one-time thing? It would not, permanently replace any of the procedures within our regional agreement. We absolutely have to abide by that. And I will tell you, I'm gonna be honest with you, I have not reached out to legal counsel yet because I didn't wanna reach out today and then have to incur another expense tomorrow after we talk tonight. So I'm trying to be fiscally responsible.
One of the few.
But what I think, we may have two options. So I feel like what you're asking for is, version A could be if, we were able to enter into this municipal agreement and these two towns have already sort of paid up front. Could we have an agreement where everyone, because what happens is, if you are being nuanced by your enrollment, that doesn't happen to the two towns who paid ahead. So is there a way that we can nuance it for, even though they've paid ahead, that after the loan duration or during the loan duration, we have a procedure, if you will, to, for the other two towns so that everybody's enrollment is considered upon their pay. So whether, what they pay. So whether that's at the end of 5 years, we look at the enrollment trends and we say, okay, your enrollment decreased over 5 years by whatever, you get some money back, or your enrollment increased and you owe us X number of dollars type of thing. Or, there's a version B, you just need to give me a minute because I literally lost my train of thought. Or version B is there a way that we say everybody is going to pay this flat rate? The people who paid ahead, the flat rate is based on now. And the other towns who are borrowing with this, we couldn't do this with the regional agreement that we currently have in place, but we would have to get this IMA to do it, where we say, okay, the towns that are borrowing are going to be borrowing this set amount over the terms of the loan. Is that,
That's the
It's-
winner.
You nailed
Okay.
it.
And the borrowing is no different than paying up front, because you're getting a check at the beginning of the job
Sure.
from the town. You know what I mean? It's just like paying cash, right? We take out a loan for that whole amount, you're getting it up front. fair and equitable, and that's what they're pushing in this country, equity. So we just wanted everything to be fair for all 5 towns.
We
And
just
it's-
wanna lock in a
And
dollar.
as far, yeah, but as far as I'm concerned,
See.
if 2 pay upfront and we finance ours and we pay more the following year because our population goes up by 2 students, that's not equitable.
If they haven't paid for their additional 2 students or whatever the case
Yeah,
may
but you know
be.
what I mean, that's the way the contract is written.
Sure.
You're paying
Yep.
more for that fixed rate, for that price of that chiller, you're paying more the following year because the population went up by 5 students, whereas the person that paid 25,000 in the beginning to pay their share, theirs is only going up, well, theirs is going up for the students, but not the cost of the chiller for them. That's the way I read this thing, or am I confused?
The cost of the chiller is always the same.
Yeah, but
Your share, your portion of it
it
would
goes,
change. Does
would
that make
change,
sense?
correct.
So
That's
what
what confuses me.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking
no.
is going on here, I think the chiller is a little less expensive than a lot of the projects they were thinking of. If,
Yeah.
if we were building a middle high school and it was gonna be $50 million, we'd be over the moon that it was gonna go up and down based
Yeah,
on
but-
enrollment.
Yeah, but it shouldn't go up and down
Yeah.
based on enrollment. It should be a flat rate in the beginning. It's a piece of equipment, it's no different than buying a
This is-
lawnmower.
It's
Well, I think
fairly
the other
cheap.
part,
Excuse me
Devin,
just a minute, Debbie's had,
I just thinking this through, and after last week, I was thinking, could you do an agreement with just the 3 towns for the financing? Everybody agrees on the October 1 enrollments as of this year across the board for the life of the loan. Could that be written
That
into an
was
MOU?
option B.
And then do an agreement for your borrowing for those 3 towns? Because that is confusing part. The chiller is staying, say $100,000, whatever, I don't know what the real number is.
364.
364,
Or seven,
whatever
it is.
whatever it was, I
Yeah.
haven't seen it for a while, but it's staying at that number.
Right, that doesn't
But
change.
Hubbardston might pay a little more on year 1, cause they got 5 more students, and
Yeah.
Gary may have had 3 less, so they're
Yeah.
paying a little less, and then it's gonna go up and down for everybody, but that number always stays the same, it's
Yeah.
just where it's
Just-
coming from a little bit each year.
Yeah,
So I don't know if it's
Yeah.
possible to do an agreement with just the 3 towns doing the borrowing and agree to accept those enrollment numbers for the life of the loan.
Yeah, she does have a copy
She's
of the
aware of that,
Dover
okay, alright.
Sherburne IMA that the bond council had sent to me.
You spelled Sherburne wrong, too.
I guess I'm trying to understand, why are we amortizing the percentage of the 3 towns that are financing this over 5 years, but to Peter's point, we're paying the bill in year 1. Why don't we just use the current population of students to divide the bill and be done with it?
The way our regional agreement is written, and I think Mr. Boudreau has a perfect point, is that it is really probably focused on large
Yeah.
projects, right? So the way it is currently written is that it is always an apportion based on your student enrollment. I would need to seek legal counsel, Deb, to answer your question, to see if we can do this, and I will do that ASAP tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure that I understood where your team was coming from, to be able to have the right information. Does that
At
help?
least from where I'm sitting, you.
Well, I guess
gave
you
me-
said you're gonna get clarity on it, right? I mean, if we're paying, I understand that the contract says, you know, I guess I don't understand it, it's,
We did talk about redoing or relooking, not redoing, but
The regional
looking at
agreement.
the
Reviewing.
regional
Yeah,
agreement.
It's up for renegotiation.
if that's what the agreement says, that's what the agreement says.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why,
I think where it gets wonky for us, Chris, is this is one of the very few situations where 2 towns have the money to pay for it all up front and
And
the
we
other
don't,
3 don't.
right.
Right.
And that's the inequitable part we talked about last week, the fact
Mhm.
that it doesn't seem fair to a town that has a large share as opposed to $5,000, $10,000,
Right.
$19,000.
And we're
and I
Punish
get that,
because
and
we're the
that's,
largest-
and that's all
larger
fine and good, I get that, and
piece.
I'm prepared to pay that based on the population today. The problem is the fluctuation of the population over the forthcoming 5 years, or forever how long we take the loan out for.
Yeah.
Because to Peter's point, the price of the chiller is the price of the chiller.
So I think they're
So
referring
if we're
back,
gonna refer back to the regional agreement,
I think
Yeah.
that's a problem, I think we're referring
Well,
back to the regional
Sure.
agreement, cause we have to.
We have to.
But as Nate and the
Unless you do an
superintendent
IMA.
have said, you know,
I think.
the calculation was probably more based for like a large,
Right.
actual, realistic project, and the founders or whoever wrote that agreement at that time probably didn't
Right.
anticipate a moment where 2 towns were gonna be paying $10,000 out of pocket and the other 3 didn't. It didn't cover that issue, so we just have to either do an IMA to cover that cost and then look at it as the agreement as a whole, the next time we look at it for review,
And that is up
and
for review
kinda just
soon?
go with it.
Next year
The
will be
regional
10
agreement?
years, yes.
Well, there is no deadline,
Yeah.
moving on,
It's-
Really?
I was on the committee when
Okay.
we
Yeah.
looked at it, and let me tell you, we thought it was all perfectly clear, and now
Yeah.
we read it, we have
Yeah,
no
no
idea what
Well,
it
we're
that's,
says,
thinking.
yeah.
and that was our point, was
I
to
know.
revisit it a little bit more frequently
It
than
needs to be,
twice in
but
40 years.
The superintendent has actually,
Yeah.
they've been, we have as a school
It's
committee
written
also.
for $1 million projects
Well,
and
the
stuff like
thing
that,
is,
not, I
It's a
mean,
big undertaking because it will be all 5 towns all together working on this with, and we will need legal
If you can get 'em
counsel
together.
through this. And we did, we had a fantastic counsel at the time, and
Yeah.
like I said, we thought it was crystal clear.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work, there's a lot of parts that don't work, and it,
Oh, I know,
we
I
feel
saw
it
that.
does need to be revisited, and that job needs to be undertaken.
And Chris, just in case you weren't aware of this, the meeting that we attended last week, had it been able to function with the other communities, which, it wasn't able, we were there to vote on the 3 options for the loan, 5 years, 7 or 10, so that's actually what's also in the wind in this, in terms of whether we support, 5 years or 7 or 10. The other 2 towns had already indicated, or there were 2 towns that indicated they favored the 5-year plan, but as far as any actual business, we couldn't do anything.
Nobody showed up other than us.
So that's, I just wanted to clarify that for you, just in case you didn't know that.
In our end, perfectly transparent, I think one of the reasons that we have obviously a sense of urgency around this is because we've already received our first bill. So,
You getting billed for something that hasn't been done? Nice.
well, we have the chiller.
It has been done,
Purchase
it
the
just
chiller.
It has been
Oh, you have a
done.
chiller in a crate. Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Chiller in the crate.
So that's why we really, we're,
Need to get it moving.
yeah, we
Trying to buy
need to
the
get
chiller
moving,
now for the
so.
same price, it's not happening.
So we will do our homework on our end as
Yeah.
long as you guys are in favor of that, and we can do that much faster than opening our regional agreement and getting
Okay.
that process
Yeah,
underway.
obviously.
Yeah.
And within the confines of the open meeting law, we can meet with you guys again. Like, it doesn't need to be 2 weeks from now on the select board meeting, like, we can have conversations ahead of time to get something approved.
Yep.
Because we don't wanna hold the Quabbin up either.
Yeah,
We
no,
appreciate that,
We need to
and
move forward with
once
this
we
and
have
get it
our
done.
opinion on this tomorrow,
Mhm.
I will reach out.
Do you have a timeline? Cause I haven't seen anything on a timeline for this, as far as being installed and operating.
The only thing that's holding me up right now is the electrical transformer. I communicated with the contractor today, he's saying, they told us back on July, I think it was 15th, that it was 10 to 12 weeks for the transformer.
How long ago
I'm
was
supposed
that?
to, July 15th.
July.
But also, isn't the timeline affected by which choice the towns decide on for the
No,
loan?
they've already
they
ordered
No,
it.
have it.
they already have it.
Oh, this is a fait accompli already?
We're just
and-
paying back.
Yeah.
So we're looking to
The
rubber
machines-
stamp it, right?
School has a lot of money.
I'm not suggesting it isn't,
Well,
but that's
they
why
got
I'm
they're
asking.
rolling in dough.
That's why I'm asking the question, cause one final question, at least from me, you had indicated that to give you guys the opportunity to, research the loan, to see if it could be better suited for all of us.
We're actually not researching the loan, what we're going to research
The
is a legal opinion on the regional agreement and the IMA.
Okay,
Yeah.
but my question then also is, does that mean that we can continue ourselves looking into the possibility of a loan? Because we know, point of fact, it is legal. There are towns that have done this, the very thing that we're looking for, or is that now, are we
Oddly
dismissing that?
enough, our loan people and their loan people are the same people.
Mhm.
So it really doesn't matter to the town.
Everybody's in
how-
everybody's pocket, that's what you're saying.
It's
So is the
Beauty
consensus
bank.
then we're gonna go with
The
one of the options presented by the superintendent?
Consensus,
At
at
this
least
point.
what it seems to be, if the board is accepting of it, is that we let the interim superintendent do her research, and she will return to us with what the legal counsel for the Quabbin Regional School District says is fair and allowable.
Yeah.
And we've sent to them the documentation that I sent to you, both the email and the draft municipal agreement from the other regional school, so they know kind of what we're thinking. We now know what the school district is thinking, so let's just
So what,
see.
do we need to do anything, we as a board, officially
No,
on this?
We're gonna
Okay?
sit and wait.
the original.
Hopefully not long.
Yeah.
The original proposed motion that I gave you was
Mhm.
in the event that this was not as amicable
Gotcha.
as.
Which I would like to say,
Yes.
I feel like this is a much better start than I've ever felt with Quabbin. I thank you for coming out and reaching out, both of you, you know, to come and like, even that last meeting, even though it was a little tense sometimes, but,
Yeah.
you know, I still feel like, I feel like you want to communicate with us, so, and I appreciate that very much, I just wanna say that.
I think, I mean, I don't wanna speak for Deb and the school committee, but I think we all want to communicate with you. You know, I think what happens, I've only worked in a regional school district, so,
See,
you know, I've experienced it my whole entire educational career. But, you know, by taking on, by sort of saying, we'll do a courtesy, we'll go out and we'll do the borrowing for you, that involved a lot of time and effort, you know, kind of on our part, and we didn't necessarily have, I think we need to have more transparent communication in the process, that if you had questions along the way about that borrowing, that you would have felt comfortable sort of like calling on the phone and saying, you know, to myself or Cheryl or Kevin or whoever's part of the project, like, I'm really wondering about this, our team is worried that this doesn't feel fair. Before we come to a meeting where it feels like we've done a lot of legwork and then it sort of gets upended. And I'm sure you feel exactly the same way. So I think we want to, this document we presented earlier is also in the hopes of trying to put some systems and structures in place so that we can have more clear communication with all of our towns.
Yeah.
So we can have better outcomes.
And I mean, I still think about that meeting last week every day, and we're not an enemy of the Quabbin Regional. Quabbin Regional wouldn't exist if it wasn't for towns like us. And I think everybody needs to know that. I feel like when we go to meetings with the Quabbin Regional, I feel like we're like an enemy, right off the get-go. We're like an enemy, and the tension's already risen like this, and it shouldn't be that way. We should be cordial like we are now. Not that it wasn't cordial at the meeting, but I felt a lot of tension in that room. But, I mean, we're not there to fight. We have to work this out. We're a regional school district, and we're one of the 5. And that's all I have to say.
No, I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
also think that it's complex. So every town you add into a regional agreement makes it that more complicated.
It's that much harder, yeah.
It is. It's
just,
harder, it's more
everybody's not gonna be
challenging.
satisfied
Sure.
with a 5-town school. You're always gonna have 1 or 2 that don't agree with the other 3 or whatever. But, that's the way of the world, you know what I mean?
But it is our job, as it is with
We gotta
every
get
select
along.
board on all 5 towns, to fight and
Of
represent
course.
our town.
Yep.
Yeah, we
We
have a
appreciate that.
lot to worry about like you do, you know, is your bottom line. We have a bottom line that really doesn't exist because we don't have much. It's not the school's fault, it's just the way it is, and so we have to deal with what we have.
Debbie?
I just wanted to say quick too, as the Hubbardston representative for Quabbin Regional School District, I am always happy to facilitate any of those conversations,
Yeah.
get the information.
Yeah.
She's very busy. If you
Yeah.
want me to come and report, or the other members of our, I've always offered that.
know what I would think would
And it's
be-
hard because I think boards change, people change, they don't understand the agreements. You're
Mhm.
kinda always starting over, getting everyone up to speed, so.
You know what I would think would be awesome, if our representatives on the school committee could come and realize our financial end before you guys go into negotiation.
I gotta
That-
admit,
I
I was a
think-
little disappointed this year with the new board and new administrator. I thought, And it's not just Hubbardston, it's all the
Yeah.
towns. We do spend a lot of time and a lot of work. And nobody, all that anyone ever wants is the bottom line number, not why we're there, how, what, and all the other things. So whatever we can do to make
Yeah.
that understand, and I'll share anything
Yeah,
with you,
like
I've always been open
If you
to
could
that, but
join us and,
yeah,
because we have to, all have to work to get to an end game.
right.
No
But
matter
it
how
isn't
you
just
get there,
that
you
end
can take a
number.
million U-turns to get there, as long as you end up with the same product
Right.
on the other end. That's all I want.
And I think we could work together a lot with like the rural schooling, you know, there's a lot of things we can do, and I hope that, you know,
I-
this
I
could be a
already-
fresh start,
I
and
I think
I'm
we're all
happy
in
to
agreement
help.
with that, but we should also
Move it along.
allow them to exit stage left.
Well, I mean, that's
if-
part of what the meeting's for, right?
No, but I mean, now we're talking about how we want to deal with our own people, et cetera, and that's
It's all
fine.
connected, though.
Well, yeah,
Just
but
part of
they don't need to hear.
communication, that's all I'm saying, I'm happy to
The
help.
superintendent who I spoke to on Friday did bring up a solid point. If the Quabbin Regional School District let the member towns know what their enrollment was very, very early, like September, October, we could then understand, oh, enrollment, additional enrollment times the student per, I don't know the full word of that, but times that number, that gives us a base that we can begin to budget on in October.
Yeah.
And that's really all we're looking for, cause then it does become two and a
And
half,
that's-
3%, 3.5 that the Quabbin School District and the school
Absolutely.
committee is saying it is. But to us, it looks like, oh, this is a 10% increase because we didn't know about the enrollment until May. And so it's just, it's
We
communication.
do have those discussions, but we need to share them better with you.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you
you.
for having us. I
Appreciate it.
really
Cool.
wanna stay to hear about the ultra trail race, but
Yeah.
my son's
Do you-
home from the military, so I'm
Oh.
gonna sneak back
And
and
best of luck
See
to
him.
you in the
yeah,
job.
thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Kevin,
Tell
thank
him
you.
that.
I'll see in the
Thank you.
notes what the
Beautiful
trail
table.
race is all
Tell
about.
them thank you for his service.
Oh,
for
thank
me.
you, yes.
I'm a veteran.
Thank you for the clock.
Okay.
Drive safe.
We've done open session already, so
Deb, we will ensure that all applicants for the school committee open seat are,
I did, like I say, speak to one today,
Yeah.
I said, were you invited, are you going, will I see you tonight, is what I said, and she said, no, why?
we'll make sure.
It
So I
could've
go,
gone
and I
into
knew we had
somebody's
that
spam.
discussion last year, so I
Yeah.
thought they were.
There's a million things that could happen, we'll make sure.
I know,
that-
I don't know that
There's
I'll be
4 of
able to
them,
make, is
so-
it the 21st, your next meeting?
Yes.
I'll try, I'll do my best.
Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah.
listening.
Okay, item 5.
Just send a recommendation, that's all. Just email one of us with a recommendation if you have a
Okay.
recommendation.
Perfect,
Thanks.
Let's start with the announcements.
Oh, me?
Yep.
I'm finally on, okay. Now that everybody left the room, awesome. Thanks. So we did, since our last meeting, have 2 more of our summer concerts. We had one on July 22nd and this past Saturday, August 5th. Both concerts were super fun, if you didn't hit them. The first one was ASB, and they were the soul, funk, rhythm and blues band. And the other one on the August 5th was a local school, Kelly's Music and More. Those kids were actually really good. They were, I was kind of impressed on how good those kids were. I was like, damn, they're pretty good for kids. I was like, they sing and play drum and they were going to town, and it was good stuff. So we will be having one more concert if you haven't made it, or if you wanna come out, on August 19th. The High Powered Mutants are coming. Yeah, I know, that's,
Well, that sounds like.
I always think of like Ninja Turtles when I hear it too.
Isn't there a new
What?
TMNT movie?
Yes. But anyway, so it's August 19th, 5 to 8 at the rec field. The Giacomo's has been coming out and doing food. I'm pretty sure Plainview will come out again with their alpacas this go, and the Girl Scouts will be selling cookies because we still have some. So yeah, come out and join us. It's always free to enter and free to park. Bring a picnic table or, excuse me, a
Picnic table?
not a picnic table, that would be heavy.
Chair.
Bring a picnic blanket or a chair and come and enjoy a fun-filled evening of music.
What's the hours on that again?
5 to 8 at the rec field, August 19th. Alright, and then we have, of course, the Dinghy Dash coming up on August 26th at 10 a.m. at Brigham Pond. This year we have made different groups to enter. So we have single occupant youth, single occupant adult, and then group vessel for 2 to 4 people. We will always have best sink, most creative vessel, and extended voyage awards. To go along with it, the deadline to enter is August 21st. And if you haven't come out and seen the Dinghy Dash, it is a cardboard boat regatta that has some serious creativity with cardboard boats and duct tape. And is super fun to watch, and yeah, see who's gonna swim and who's gonna win. So, that's on August 26th at 10 a.m. at Brigham Pond. On September 2nd and 3rd at Plainview, they will be having a fall festival from 10 to 4, which sounds super fun. On September 9th, there is the 26th annual 5K library race. That starts at 9 a.m. and all the entry forms and stuff is on the town library website, so you can enter. September 16th from 9 to 2 is field day at the rec field. The Lions will be putting that on this year. September 23rd, this is groundbreaking news, we're having a townwide, because everybody's been asking, townwide yard sale, September 23rd, you are hearing it first here, rain date of the 24th, if you, I know, you know how many people have been on me about this? So it finally kind of got tossed to me, so that's the date I picked, so here we go.
So how do you balance Facebook Marketplace now with like a yard sale?
Who cares? Just go with it. Just, if you want to find your neighbor's junk, just go for it. It's always good stuff.
But it's easier on Facebook Marketplace. I can
No,
search
no,
specific-
because you can't touch it, you can't pick through it, can't see if it's got cracks. Anyway.
You don't know what you want.
Yes, you don't know what kind of treasures you're gonna find until you pick through somebody's garage, okay? So anyway, September 23rd, with a rain day of the 24th, townwide yard sale. If you want to get on the map, it's free. The maps are gonna be free, it's free to enter, whatever. Email hubbardston250@gmail.com with your name and address. The information is on the town website under special events, under townwide yard sale. But yeah, just shoot me an email with the subject title, townwide yard sale. So your name will not be posted, just your address. But yeah, so the last thing for September is September 30th, the boys, Boy Scout Troop 22 will be having a bottle and can drive from 8 to 12 at the rec field. So, that is the next 2 months, all in a nutshell, and I am done.
Thank you. On this, you put down communications and liaison reports.
I have a liaison report, super short.
That was my next question, do we have this?
We do, kinda. So I've been working with the library, I'm still trying to get more information ahead of time, which Katie's still producing it much
Oh,
faster than
sorry.
I'm getting it. No, that's fine. But backing up real quick, so Hubbardston Public Library Scholarship, they did award 2 scholarships this year, each in the amount of $500. And they had their meeting last week, so I'm assuming these folks know at this point, so we're gonna go with it. We have one for Abigail Ramsey and one for Mabel Matheson,
Good stuff.
so.
That was the
Yes.
country,
No,
That-
no,
No,
that's the
not
library.
oh,
They might have been
library
the same
has-
folks.
oh, Abigail.
Yes.
But all I can tell you is that's who got the
Oh, oh,
Hubbardston Library
Yep.
Oh,
Scholarship.
well, good
Might
for
be the
them.
same 2 people who
I'm
are,
glad to hear that they got more money.
front
Yes.
winners of everything, but.
Yeah, I can
How
tell you a
could
couple
they
things.
not? They were like amazing.
Yep.
Yes,
How does the Hubbardston Library fund 2 scholarships?
they have money from their 5K and things like that. So I have stuff on my liaison list. The open space has a Hubbardston Hikers Club. Do we have a date for the next hike yet?
No.
No. But they did go on one hike, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes, went on one hike and
Never
another
again.
one is getting planned, correct? Okay. So there's a Hubbardston Hikers Club from the open space, so that's a plus. And then, if,
And where will one find out about those dates?
I
and
will
locations?
be putting it out there as soon as I hear the
Okay.
date.
The last one was posted in the Berry Gazette.
What does one do if one does not get said newspaper?
You should subscribe to the Berry Gazette. It is a local newspaper.
If you
Worth
send those to
supporting.
me, we can get them out on the town website
Website.
as well and
Yeah,
get them all,
yeah.
so let's do it, like, I didn't even
I think
know
it was
about
on the town website
Yeah.
last night.
So yeah,
In
we
the
definitely need to, cause like the last one I missed
Yeah.
because I didn't hear about it till I was like, oh, I wanna go. And then the next one sounds super fun. I heard you and Mike, cause I was on vacation when you guys had your last meeting. So I watched it on video. And I was like, oh, that sounds wicked fun, I wanna go see where the cranberries are. So, yeah, so I wanna go on the hike, hopefully, if I can hear the date. And then also, on another board, the planning board had a, cell tower be approved, another one.
Another one?
Yeah, down, the one that's going down on 68, down by the Gardner line.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so that finally went through for, now it's on the cell tower people to do their
Good.
thing and get through the building and all that stuff. So that's kind of a big news for
When
maybe
is this
something.
tower going to be fully
Never.
operational?
According to Rutland Regional, next week.
Next week?
But
What's it
Okay.
waiting on? Still,
They're waiting on someone to come and climb their facility.
Oh, they're still on that,
and they're
called the
gonna
dome.
move the bowl.
Yeah.
oh, so they can
so-
communicate.
So that they can communicate with each
Yeah.
other, and that's the last step.
But that's just gonna enhance our radio communications, it's not actually going to impact, as it seems, it should, our cell phone.
No, the planning board chair made it a little more difficult than it needed to be. But we are figuring that out. Rutland's legal counsel is currently looking into our telecommunications bylaws, which make doing telecommunications difficult. So they're looking into it.
Yeah, it's like, it sounds super painful, and it's gonna be a lot of work for the planning board, so.
I just wanna know when I can make a phone call on 68 and not drop the call.
I have AT&T, and I was on a Zoom call from my house all the way to Pinecrest and all the way back, and I did not drop the signal once.
It depends on where you
Gotta
are
be,
with it.
gotta be no clouds
Off
and
of
the cloud
68,
clear
I'll tell you,
out.
I can't make a phone
Set the
call on
department
my
head meeting.
Yes,
driveway to my
I
house.
couldn't hit the button, 'cause I was driving.
I lose this once I take a left on 68 coming from Rutland.
Oh.
I lose AT&T at Bringer Pond.
Oh, everything, yeah,
I
dies
pick
down
up
there.
the phone on my wall and I can call anywhere in
Yeah,
the
there
world.
you go.
I have one of
You got a
those too.
direct line.
Yeah, I have one of those too for the
We
What's
didn't
the
kids.
have these
situation with
troubles
the
back in the
other,
60s and 70s.
tower besides this new one now?
It's in the tower's
The one
hands.
that
Yeah, it's in their,
In the
it's in the
tower's
vendor's hands to
So
do.
The builder.
So it's still going
Yep.
forward, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What, RFPs?
RFPs or will go
Yeah.
out after it's all on.
Yeah.
That's what's taking a little bit of
What about the one
time.
over there?
That's what he was
That's
just
what
talking about.
it's,
That's what I was
It's
asking
cooking.
about, that's what I was
It's-
asking
Oh,
about,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, once it's in the builder's hands at this point.
Okay,
Yeah, seems
Yeah.
like that one up there is gonna move quick.
any other liaison reports?
Yeah, I don't even know who I'm a liaison for.
Does that mean you don't know if you have a report?
I don't have a report to
Okay,
Okay.
fine.
report.
Question,
That's right.
again, for the, in terms of the seniors, do we have a starting date for the,
Deck.
deck?
no, but the bids are due on Wednesday.
Do
Okay.
one- okay.
And we have
As in 2 days from
as
now.
in 2 days from now. And we have 2 people that have been asking a ton of questions, which
Okay.
makes me think they're going to
Bid on
put
it?
in a bid.
So nobody bid on the first time?
Nobody bid on the first time.
Oh, that's not
I
good.
have a call scheduled with the engineer tomorrow morning, first thing, because the blocks that he used are not retaining wall quality, which was pointed out by one of the vendors, so we're having a conversation tomorrow.
Well, they.
Are we thinking about extending the due date in order to give it time to modify the
I
specs?
may send out additional information, but it does, as most bid documents do say, it says or equivalent all over the place, so.
Yeah,
Cause you can submit a bid package with equivalent
material.
material.
Yeah.
So in other words, something that would stand up.
Something that would go above 3 feet.
Yeah.
I've also spoken with Claudia about if we do not get the bids that we are anticipating, maybe going back and looking at having an actual deck. Cause this project was a little bit, I can't speak for everybody, but a little bit out of the scope of which I thought it was going to be.
It was same for Ryan and for the board at the time, it went from a certain,
It started as a deck, right?
Yeah.
it started as something
But
we,
now it's like
that
a-
we could consider and very quickly jump to what,
I don't wanna speak ill of an ongoing project though.
Structural engineers.
Do we,
It looks nice though.
do we have any
Yeah, it does.
concern that that the costs are gonna come in above the budget?
Not until Wednesday.
Okay. We'll get back to you on that.
So do we, let me reiterate that then, rephrase that, so in the event that the bids come in higher, right, obviously we have no more money to tap.
Yeah, no.
So the question is, at this point, I assume we would throw it back to the engineer and say, let's try this
Change
differently.
design.
Yes.
Okay.
I would have to speak to Claudia and some of the seniors about that. They've all worked so hard on this. I wasn't here for the beginning or middle of it, so I don't want to hijack it at the end and turn it into something that they didn't see, so.
So, while we're on the topic of the deck, so follow-up question, so if I'm not mistaken, we had received a correspondence to the select board pertaining to someone's concerns about it not meeting ADA compliance.
Yes, Bill Murray wrote me a handwritten note.
Oh,
Yeah, and I spoke with him on the phone, and it's not an issue because the ADA compliance entrance is still gonna be this one, and it's not a singular wraparound like he thought it was. It's actually 2 ramps.
so if
So-
someone was in a wheelchair, they would be able to access it theoretically, safely. Okay,
Okay.
that was my only question.
I'd
Thank
probably
you.
suggest coming in on this side, but yes.
Anything
Why
else?
is the ramp, why wouldn't you go straight up the ramp? Where's the ramp? What's,
Bill's question was, cause it kinda looked like in the picture that it was going to be one ramp
Yeah.
with a door, and you can't do that.
I mean, one ramp with a door.
I'll show you the note.
Okay, alright,
Heather
I'll
was
look
here-
at it after.
Heather was here on Friday.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll
A
have,
couple
yeah,
Fridays ago,
Yeah.
I don't know, I lose track of time.
okay.
Anyone else for liaison reports or any kind, or communications? Anything else that we, okay, then let's move on. To start with the consent agenda, first of all, approval of minutes of our meetings for May 15th, June 20th, and July 17th. I believe we were all in attendance at all 3 meetings, is that
Yes.
correct, as far as we know? So could we have a motion to approve?
Are we doing these all as a consent
Yeah,
agenda,
it's a
Mr.
consent
Chairman?
agenda.
Yeah, okay, Mid-State Massive Ultra Trail Race, October 7th through 8th, Nate, you wanna, let us know what that is?
Yep, this is a race that comes by every year, hosted by New England Race Events, a gentleman named Rich Mazzola. And it goes here, if you guys wanna look.
I can't read the street.
What's the time, Cross Brigham Road, is that what that says?
Yep. Cause it's a trail race, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
going to be on limited streets, it's not gonna go through downtown.
Okay.
And are they gonna have any police at those intersections?
Yep.
Making sure no
Yep,
one
they
gets
spoke
killed?
to, Chief Kuchar was the other person on the email, they provided us with their liability insurance, a whole packet on the race, which is in your packet,
And the only place it crosses is on Brigham?
is those 2 places.
Those 2 points.
Well, the other point is in our town. Maury Road?
Yeah,
Where the hell's Maury Road? That's
Well, it's on Murray Road,
no,
It's a different town probably,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I don't know, isn't that the map of Hubbardston?
it's up
The,
there. Shit,
I don't know, I can't
That's
tell
in
from
Rutland.
that map.
isn't it? Rutland?
I honestly don't know.
It's either Rutland or Princeton.
So when they've done this in the
Princeton,
past,
maybe
our
Princeton.
PD has had no objections, no concerns, everything's been fine.
oh,
Okay.
Chief Kuchar okayed it immediately. Maury Road, Hubbardston, Mass.
Where the hell is that?
It's crossing 62.
Twin
What's
Hill-
on the other side?
Twin Hill Road.
There's no road there.
There's no road there.
There's probably a trail.
Yeah, I bet you it is.
It might be one of like the
Like the
high,
one of those
it might be
park-
like High Bridge, you know, where
Yeah.
it shows up, it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Don't
It's
turn
on
there.
Fire road,
Selfridge.
maybe?
No, it's like Selfridge
fire
Road or
road?
something.
It's there, it's just closed. It's the one that doesn't connect.
Oh,
Okay,
So maybe just that one crossing.
Yeah, okay.
any other questions on that? If not, item C on the consent, facilities use request, Curtis Recreational Field.
By Mock.
Oh, yeah.
What's mock and what are they doing?
Mock is making opportunities count. It's a daycare / like
It's state funded, I
Yeah, it's a
believe.
state funded, they have all sorts of stuff from programs for different types of people,
Early
including,
education,
including
parents
children.
groups, children's
What are they
groups.
doing?
They're
Why
gonna
are they
have,
requesting to use the
Play
rec
at the
field?
they're gonna play at the playground.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
that's
Yeah.
what it's, this is the
They-
consent agenda.
Why does,
So
do they-
Mock does regional play groups in the area, and they do different events to try to get parents actively
Oh.
engaged and kids engaged
Yeah.
in things outside of, television and so
Yeah.
forth. So it's a learning educational opportunity, it's
Cool.
funded, I believe, by the state.
Yeah,
But
and they
they're-
sent us their liability insurance, we've told them that they do not get sole rights to the playground, like other people can.
yeah, still open to the public,
Yeah.
Yeah.
otherwise they'd be renting it.
Well, usually when people fill out these facility request forms, it's like for something like field day or the
Mm.
Hubbardston Fair, not a specific, so a small little thing like this, but because they're an outside entity, they kinda have to, 'cause
Still a
they-
vendor.
So they are a nonprofit agency, but they are funded by the state,
Yes.
Yeah.
early education.
Okay, under appointments, we have Jesse Alexander, Parks Recreation Commissioner. Term 2024 expires at the town election. Scott Carignan, Monty Tech School Committee Board Member, 6/30/2024. Peter Russell, Planning Board Alternate Member, 6/30/2024. Lorraine Michaels, Council on the Aging Member, term expires 6/30/2026. Judy O'Donnell, Emergency Planning Director, expires 6/30/2026. Sandra Berry, Parks and Recreation Commission Commissioner, 2024 annual town
She
election.
got sucked back in.
So I would like
Yeah, I
to, I
said
would like
that
to
name
thank
was familiar.
Sanda for agreeing to come on for what she said was this year only, to help the new members get everything under their control and then
Learn the ropes.
learn the ropes,
She
yeah.
certainly has served her time as far
I
as
knew she was getting sucked back in.
doing that, yeah. We thank Sandra for that.
Yes, thank you, Sandra.
Wage authorizations, Paul Sweeney, seasonal part-time cemetery parks, DPW, $16.25. Judy O'Donnell, emergency planning
It's not even
director,
minimum wage, is it?
emergency management, $1,156 for annual stipend.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that's annual for the fiscal.
Are there any holds or questions on these consent agenda
Where's my
items?
statement?
If there are none, I would ask for a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second,
I think I just heard a question, didn't I? What was the answer to the question?
what was the question?
Your question. Annual stipend?
Oh, he said, I'm sorry,
Yes.
he did a
It is
nonverbal.
annual.
Alright.
Yes, he answered the question, but sorry.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, opposed? Consent agenda is passed. Okay, move to new business. Authorizing the town administrator to sign memorandum of understanding for the Rural Streets Program, speed feedback, Mass Department of Transportation. Anything you need to let us know about that?
We spoke about this a while back when it was applied for, and this is just them looking to get the contract and set up delivery.
And this is the forward program that they keep calling different things, right?
No,
Oh, it's different than the
this is,
forward program?
this is different, yeah. This is the one we talked about a few months ago on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
I
This
do have
isn't-
Travis waiting in the wings if anyone has any questions.
This isn't the one with this isn't the one for the speed signs, this is a
This
different one?
is a speed sign, but it is a different grant program. Because
Okay.
the forward one isn't even out yet, so.
Yeah. This is the one that tells you your speed. It's a fixed point.
Yeah, yes, that's a good way to put.
But it's not designated
The forward one's a
for specific.
trailer, this is a fixed point.
It's like the one on 62 in Princeton.
So with this one, is the fixed point having to go in one of the locations?
Yes.
It's actually, okay, so I'm just confusing the two grants.
Either Elm Street or Maine, and then the data goes
Okay.
back to Mass DOT, which
Gotcha.
is what we talked about.
It's a great idea, state's paying for it, gives us data, resources, and helps slow people down, fantastic thoughts.
Could we then get a motion to authorize town administrator to sign the contract?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor?
What's B? Yeah, I wanna discuss B.
We're only
I
on,
haven't
we're
got to
on
it
A.
yet. We're voting on A.
Do you wanna vote on A?
They each require a motion. So,
I'm abstaining.
I'll ask again. We have a motion made and second. All in favor, say.
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
1. Motion is carried. Okay, now we'll move to item B.
Hey there, we're talking Brian. I'm gonna put you on speaker 1 second. This is Travis.
Hi Travis.
How you doing?
Okay, the intermunicipal agreement for Brine Production, Templeton and Winchendon. Are we gonna hear from Travis?
Yep, as was presented at town meeting,
Yeah.
the DPW received $12,000 to enter into an agreement with the towns of Templeton, Winchendon, and now potentially the town of Phillipston to do brine production. Travis knows a lot more about brine production, so I will pass it to the DPW director. I guess since we all kind of know what the project is from town meeting, if anyone has any specific questions regarding the intermunicipal agreement.
Does Phillipston jumping in on this boat put our dollar amount down for the
Yes.
original cost? Okay, so we may not be paying if Phillipston jumps in, the 12,000 total?
Slightly less.
A little bit less,
8, pay 8 instead of 12.
wow.
We would more or less, as I took it in the conversation, is that we'd be putting our money in, the three of us, because that's who is in with it now. If Phillipston comes in, they would pay the same amount, but then it would be divided up between the three of us, which would be taking off on our salt costs, so we wouldn't be paying for salt.
Okay, so you just put it towards
Correct.
costs, okay,
Future
got it,
costs, yeah,
alright,
makes sense.
okay.
Any questions for Travis or Nathan or anybody? Okay, could we get a motion to again authorize the town administrator to sign contract?
So move.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Abstained?
All right,
Motion
Travis,
carried.
sorry for bothering you at night.
Thanks, Travis.
Thank you,
All right,
Travis.
have a good night.
Okay, see ya.
Okay. So,
You've been waiting
moving
that
new
long for that?
business. Item B,
About 10 minutes.
the select board goals.
Yes. The core goals. All right, did everyone have an opportunity to review this?
Yes, for me.
All right, I did not make a presentation because I felt like my next presentation was enough presenting for the evening. So I will read the bullet points of the goals, but to those watching from home and in attendance in person, there are detailed backup goals on how the staff are going to move forward on the overarching umbrella goals. And this whole document will be placed on the town website as soon as approved and amended as necessary. We got Town of Hubbardston FY24 Select Board Goals. Explore ways to bring in new revenue for the town of Hubbardston. This includes supporting the allocation of town resources to assist in obtaining funding for municipal projects and services, and collaborating with the town administrator and finance team to effectively generate revenue through real and personal property taxes. Support and implement a measure to eliminate the town's systematic deficit by 2026. I didn't realize how black and white that sounds.
Yeah.
The systematic deficit is going to be a lot longer to eliminate than 2026. The plan will identify the root cause of the deficit and develop strategies to address them. The plan will be measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. The town will develop a plan, seek public input, and communicate the plan to the residents. Increase civic engagement in the town by creating a more accessible and transparent town government. Support measures that effectively promote town meetings more, making it easier for residents to volunteer and researching new ways to communicate with residents. attract and retain talented staff by implementing measures that support their professional development, compensation, benefits, and work-life balance, provide opportunities for professional development, and create a positive work environment. Increase the efficiency and effectiveness of town by supporting measures that review town processes, automate tasks, invest in new technology, and creating a culture of continuous improvement. Support measures that update town facilities and make capital investments to ensure the long-term sustainability of the town. And support measures that increase opportunity for economic development in the town, ensure processes and procedures are business-friendly by supporting the streamlining of permitting processes, marketing the town to potential businesses, and aiding them in finding the resources to succeed. Does anyone have any questions about those, what I'm calling umbrella goal topics?
The second one is very 2026.
Yeah.
It's a little, okay, let's roll with it. Let's
Support
shoot for
and
this.
like try to begin to tackle maybe?
Yeah.
I would maybe reduce the word eliminates,
I'll soften
strength.
that.
Yeah.
Cause if you can do that by 2026, like you're a
Yeah.
genius, Nate, and you can
Yeah.
stay as long as you like.
Yeah.
We're good.
No, I thought they were all very, well written. I thought you went into, perhaps more detail than you needed to on the SMART section.
Yeah.
Which is, it's okay, you understand what you were
like
doing
the
and what
memo.
you're trying to, yeah.
Yes, I will
We
say
sincerely appreciate all the work. But no, I think they're great, I think they capture what we had discussed in our retreat. And I think, you know, I think it's just important to realize that these probably aren't things we're gonna be able to necessarily always successfully tackle within the fiscal year, and that it's okay if some of these linger beyond FY '24.
Oh yeah, some of them are going to linger. Well, there's always room for
Well,
improvement.
I wanna speak to your next section that you put in here, you've got immediate goals and you've got strategic goals.
Yes.
Toward long-term objectives, so I think you addressed that issue. Your immediate goals we expect done in 2024. The strategic goals toward long-term objectives, those can float a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of your goal one, of your immediate goal, to improve the performance of town personnel through training and development,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be more specific. I wanna have each town employee, complete 2 relevant training sessions per year.
2 instead of 1?
You said at least 1,
Yeah.
not specific in this, I want it to be 2.
Alright.
Can we do that? That's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, here's the kicker, here's a question for you, does that mean in Nate's mind, just so he has clear direction, that we're looking for him to fund and have them submit to the relevant trainings, or does this include any relevant training, so if there's a free training offered, that counts as one of the trainings?
Of course it does.
I would attempt to make one be
Free,
free and
cost,
possibly one that
Relative,
was a better opportunity, like the new part-time employee, Wendy, who works with the DPW, is attending the September version of the municipal accounting class that you and I took, which I think will be great in helping her understand more of what's going on, cause she is very, very bright and very, very nice, but this is her first go at municipal work, so I think it'll help a lot.
I question whether with any of, either one of them should be, cost the employer. I would be against that.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you mean cost the employer? It's our job to professionally provide professional development to our employees.
Well, but the,
What do you mean
it
by
came
cost
up
the employer?
just about a minute ago, that one would be free, with suggesting that the other one isn't. If it's
If-
gonna cost anything, I
if
think that
possible.
we should be paying for it as opposed to taking an employee who isn't making
Yes.
much money to begin with
Yeah, no.
and saying, you have to go to this and you're gonna have to pay for it
Oh, we would,
yourself.
pay for it.
any training that had a cost associated with it, if we can send the employee, would be covered by us. I have a $6,500 line for just that.
Mhm.
All that comes out of there is the town administrators, like MMA and STAM and those dues and training for different employees. So we covered the 150 for Wendy's class. Mary applied for the MMA municipal finance course that is, I believe, 2 months worth of Fridays, so she finds out next month if she got in. She also applied for a scholarship, so usually there are opportunities like that, and we're going to work with everybody over the next year to pinpoint some ways they can improve. We have a long-standing relationship with Fred Pryor Training, I think that's their name. And they are working on, some of the staff is working on an Excel course through them. They haven't started yet, but the minute they have access to the programming, they will.
So I just wanna make sure that, you know, at least, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but at least from my perspective, it could, you know, we don't have a definition of what constitutes a training or how long a session is.
Could it be virtual also,
So,
you know?
I guess my thing is, right, anything
Uh-huh.
that's going to contribute to their, employee engagement or their employee performance would count, right? So what some towns have done over the years and they've looked at is, you know, LinkedIn Learning is a really cool opportunity. It's like $30 to $40 a month, and, you know, someone can sign up for and the town can reimburse them for that month.
So it's an
and they-
online session?
They can take a zillion different, you name it, there's
Yeah.
a course on it, LinkedIn Learning, whether it's, you know, how to do flash fill on Excel with the coolest instructor ever, my opinion.
Now, would they get a certificate at the end of that,
Mhm.
showing
They
that
do.
they act?
They have to pass a quiz
The
to get
same way
it.
we have to sit through the conflict of interest
How
and
about
we
if
get a
we,
certificate?
how about if we leave this discretion up to the town administrator to decide what's pertinent, what's not pertinent, what's a cost we should be able to afford, what's a cost we should pay, what's a cost we shouldn't pay?
So I think that's fine. I think my biggest thing is just to make sure everyone understands that when we're saying this, we're not saying we have to necessarily incur costs. We're not necessarily saying someone has to go to 3 days of training to count as a session.
Mhm.
Like, it could be as
And-
small or as long as it needs to be to
Agreed.
provide enhancement
In
and
its
opportunities.
design, this goal is, the deliverable here is a comprehensive training plan that discusses individual offices and ways they can move forward. Like, I don't wanna see anyone take a training this year that they then can't build on in some other aspect of their professional life next year, cause that would be ill-fitted for the
So-
goal.
So I think you get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
So this training is towards, non-union employees?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So let's change it to 2.
On
And
that,
let's keep a
Chris,
tally, let's keep a tally of,
I would ask you a question on that, as far as, is it necessary to change it to 2 when I'm looking at the very specific thing on the next page, to provide all town personnel with at least one relevant training session? I don't think you need to say 2.
I think we need to say 2.
Can I follow
In
up
other words,
on
you're
it?
insisting that they take 2 as opposed to giving them
They-
the
I'm
option.
insisting that they take
two
2, no
anyway.
more than
Like,
2.
Yeah.
They really do.
No
So-
less than 2, I don't like the ambiguity of it.
So
I don't
they-
want one person to take 100 and one person to take 1.
Why?
The only
What if
word,
the other person already has all the knowledge and they only take one course?
I think there's always something someone can learn.
so,
Okay.
clarification, when you say provide in this case, do you mean, have someone have the opportunity to sign up to take those classes and we provide them the ability to do so, or provide as in they're required to take 2 opportunities every year?
I will provide them the opportunity to take the training.
So what happens if they say, thanks Nate, no thanks?
Yeah, I don't wanna sit through that, I've already done that.
Can't do
I-
that.
So
I
just-
feel like I know enough.
I just wanna make sure, it seems like the 5 of us interpret things differently sometimes, so I wanna
Mhm.
make sure all 5 of us are on the same page with what we're asking, cause if you come back at the end of the year and you say, Mary, and you know, I took 2 classes and that's about it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want you to, you know, fail at your goal because we weren't clear as to what it is.
I think,
I would hope that anyone that would chose to go and work for a municipality would take the opportunities presented to them to better themselves at their profession.
As would I.
Yeah. If someone tells me like, no, like, I'm sorry, then maybe that's a conversation we have at that time to figure out why said employee that I don't think exists here, wouldn't wanna take a relevant training course during the day that they are paid for.
Right.
I'm not asking anybody to go on an unpaid Sunday to wherever.
On their own time.
Yeah. If that was the case, we would work out some sort of comp time benefit for the employee.
Let's just make sure this conversation's in the minutes, so that if this comes up in a year from now, we can reference.
Yep.
And
Note this, Tony.
let's not forget that this is a goal, right?
Yeah.
We're only talking about a goal. We can fail to meet the goal. And then to Nate's point, we'll figure out why we failed to meet the goal. But I don't think 2 trainings at the employee's choice with Nate's approval is too much to ask for. Because there are some trainings that can take you half an hour.
So, never mind.
This isn't the one I thought was gonna get the.
It's always the ones you don't think, you're like, oh, this was fine. Nope.
So that has to, I mean, like, if you're gonna make it, I mean, it's just a goal.
Goal.
Okay, I don't need to
Not
say anything.
mandatory.
Yeah.
And there's a
goal.
deliverable on
It's
all of
Nate's
these.
goal.
Yeah, that's
It's
why.
not the employee's goal.
Yeah,
it's
that's
Nate's
why
goal.
I'm not saying anything. I have nothing to say.
Nate wants to get his reports to take 2 training sessions.
So he should run with it.
He should run with it, and he should manage it, and approve it as he
And-
sees fit.
Let us know if you have any issues.
If one of them is very detailed and takes time, the other one will likely just be, oh, you, like, attending, like, the Cannabis Control Commission thing we went to today. Like,
This is the worst.
Well, yeah, see, that's when you lose me. I'm like, no, I don't wanna sit through that. That sounds horrible.
It wasn't, no, it was eye-opening, believe me. That's all I
horrible.
gotta say
any
about
questions
that.
on anything else?
Well, I personally, I've already complimented Nate personally on this, but I thought the overall presentation, and including all the details after it, was an excellent job done by Nate, because rather than, as I told him this earlier today, in the past, you know, we've had our list of goals that would be just this one page. But take the average person, our employees and people and citizens, you can, just as we are reading this and then we have questions, he's attempted to explain and answer the questions that are possibly gonna be added. And so this makes this available to the average person to be able to look and see how that might affect them or might be done. So I compliment you publicly also in terms of this,
Thank you, sir.
job well done on that.
And as I stated to you and mostly everybody here, if these were my goals in 5 years with plans, like, the goals build on each other.
I wanna talk about goal, create a communications plan to increase voter turnout and engagement. I wanna talk about it. I'd like to change that goal to reduce the size of the quorum needed at town meeting.
Well, actually, by reducing the size of the quorum at town meeting, as we've talked about before,
You're getting
think
where
it
I'm
would-
going with that.
I know, but again, what you said previously, shouldn't we give Nate the goal and let him find a way to get there?
I said I wanna talk about it. I said,
Okay.
that's my suggestion,
Which is
to
something-
change it to reducing the quorum. I'd like, if we can't change it completely, I'd like that included in this goal.
Yeah.
Figure out what it takes to change that quorum. I mean, we had a conversation where because of COVID, we thought we could just do it. Then we had the same conversation and we said we might be having to change town charter. So I think we need to drill down what, the lift is to change the quorum at the meeting. I think a lot of these things we're already doing. We're doing a yeoman's job in getting out the vote and getting people involved. And at some point, I think I've said this before, it's up to your constituents to, take the leap and become involved themselves and do a little bit for themselves. I mean, we can't make them do things, but I'd like to be able to function better and not have to have multiple town meetings when we can't get a quorum because of our uninvolved population.
Well, we've always gotten a quorum. I don't remember a meeting that we haven't, at least in recent years, that we haven't had a quorum. There was one that came close and we had to call people,
Yeah,
that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
I was about to
But
jump
we
in on that.
still
We-
did
I-
get a quorum.
Yeah.
So,
Because some people
the,
got
on the
called.
flip side to that is what I always hear is, oh, only people, like, we have like 50 people that show up and they make all the decisions for the town. That person, or those people that are complaining, aren't coming out anyway.
Right.
So by dropping it, you just give more ammo to that flip side.
Well,
I
care
don't think
about
they're gonna
being
show
on the
up.
Flip side.
We're trying the psychology approach.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Whether it works or doesn't work, we still can make decisions when we have 9 people. I want the number to be 9.
In many of the goals, you're going to realize that a lot of this is me attempting to create standard operating procedures, because it was difficult with a complete turnover to then come in and say, all right, who's, I'm gonna use French here, who's BSing me, and saying that this is a new issue and what goes on, and then just being able to pick something up and say, all right, this is what we do, will help this town a lot. Would love to fix the financial issues that burden the community, but if we could not, my other goal is to create backup documents so that people know. Katie likes to make fun of my memos, but
Yes,
everyone's gonna
memos.
know what I did. Like,
Memos. Everything is
but,
very wordy.
Chris, we 100% can look into that, and I will get you information, whether it's inside the parameters of this goal or outside.
Yes, please.
So, are there any other comments or questions pertaining to this packet? If not, could we
I'd like to make a
motion to accept the goal? Yeah, go ahead.
to accept the FY 24 select board goal document as presented.
Okay, motion made, second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes, opposed, abstentions?
Not as presented, we're gonna change the first
Yep.
one, right?
Yeah, we have to change the,
Mr. Chairman, would you accept a friendly amendment to my own
Yes.
motion? Can
Change
I
it to
amend that
two.
to as presented with the a modification to the training section as discussed?
and a
Yes.
softening of
And will you
the,
accept that?
eliminate the town's
I will
strike
still
system.
accept that.
The amendment to the motion has been made and seconded, so any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion now?
Aye.
Yes, opposed, abstentions, motion carried. Next item, the
Nice job,
financial
Mike.
obligations
Thank you.
assessment presentation.
I don't know how you're still sitting there, that bench is horrible, Tim.
That bench is pretty bad.
Yeah, I sit in the last planning board meeting, I'm like, I don't know how people sit
Take
in
a
these
more
benches.
comfortable seat or, you know, come and join us if you
Yeah,
want.
Nobody else here.
All right,
Since
thank
you
you.
invited me.
Yeah, feel free. There's nobody else here.
Select Board, Tim,
Yeah.
those watching at home, thank you for joining us this evening. I am presenting today on the financial obligations assessment, which is a fancy buzzword way of me saying what I used to call my override presentation, but I did feel poorly about calling it that, so I came up with this name. Understanding structural deficits, a structural deficit refers to a recurring gap between expenses and revenues. It is caused by a number of factors such as rising cost and reduced income, increased expenditures, and economic challenges. Hubbardston has been facing a prolonged structural deficit, which has resulted in a widening budget gap over the years. For years, much longer than I've been here, longer than most of the select board has been here, different town administrators have been warning of this looming structural deficit. That day has come, and that day usually is referred to as a fiscal cliff. A fiscal cliff, which I found this nice photo of.
Should've just threw buckets of money right off.
Fiscal cliff is a situation where a structural deficit has become so large that it endangers the financial stability of the town. This evening, I know I'm preaching to the choir, so I am taking it and kind of making my presentation shorter. For those interested in reading the full presentation, you may do so on the town website or attached to our agenda this evening. It'll be posted tomorrow. A fiscal cliff happens when the gap between expenses and revenues becomes so wide that it is no longer possible to sustain current service levels without making significant cuts or tax increases. The town of Hubbardston has been fairly fortunate that over the years they have either robbed Peter to pay Paul or lived within their means. Unfortunately, the last couple of years have made this incredibly difficult because the cost of living has skyrocketed. That the deficit was pushed off by a few years during the COVID pandemic due to the influx of money, and this year we had a kind of a dampener on the issue because there was a large amount of expiring debt. That is still one-time revenue, which is, per our financial policy, supposed to be avoided. We are not supposed to use one-time revenue to support our operating lines within the budget. And that's what we have been doing, and that created a lot of the problems that are going on today. The town has been facing financial challenges for a number of years. Last December, in my financial forecast, I did showcase that the looming deficit was going to hit us what was supposed to be in FY24. However, we ended up with the expiring debt and enough free cash to cover the expenditures that were not covered by a balanced budget versus our revenue. A structural deficit can impact the town in a variety of ways. As you know, it can be service levels, it can be positions, it can be deteriorating infrastructure, roads, bridges. It isn't a issue that impacts you in one way. It kind of hits everything all at once, and that's where we are today and where we are now, and where Hubbardston's kind of been keeping our head above the water right here. It's very, very fortunate that the town's been able to have the level of services that it does have with this sort of looming financial issue, and that is a huge pat on the back to appointed, elected, and employed people that work or volunteer or serve here in Hubbardston. There are a lot of people doing a lot more than they are paid or expected to do. Financial management and the future. Sound financial management is essential for any organization. In 2019, my predecessor did propose and implement a set of financial policies that are best practice. We do need to ensure that we are following those, updating them regularly, and staying within our means. Effective practices can ensure prudent resource distribution and deficit prevention. This includes practices such as cost-benefit analysis, competitive bidding, and procurement reform. They are looking into a number of ways to make the procurement process easier and to cost less, but we'll see how that goes. Let's get to the fun stuff. Revenue resources. Property taxes are the town's dominant source of revenue, accounting for roughly 80% of the tax income. Property taxes are tied to the assessment property values in the town. Everyone knows that. The other two types of revenue that are kind of our big players here are the state aid, which is the red or orange. I'm sort of colorblind, so I don't know.
It's orange.
And then local receipts, which are green.
No,
Wait.
gray.
Gray.
Yep.
Yeah. But you can see that the blue is the overwhelming source. And I was speaking with the chair earlier today to talk, because he asked me, how is it 80 if we had previously talked about how property taxes were upwards of 95%? Where the way that breaks down in the entirety of the tax portion is the property taxes are, residential property tax is a huge number versus commercial property tax. So that's where that came from. Expenditure history, we all know what the primary driver of the
So that's an important graph, right? Can you go back? I mean, you gotta kinda digest this a little bit, right? Because 80% plus comes from property taxes, right? And how many new housing starts do we have a year? How many new properties do we have a year?
Mhm.
You know,
What, 12?
a dozen maybe?
Yeah.
So that's our major force to keep up with the inflation that your previous slides were talking about. And as we don't have the residential growth or the industrial growth, we can't keep pace with the increase in overall expenses.
Yes.
So it's important to understand that.
Yeah, well, think about it, every new house, let's say every new house comes in, you know, 2 kids in each house, well, that drives up your school costs,
Right.
which,
Yep.
which hurts our bottom line. So every new house that's built hurts our bottom line.
Right.
Huge.
In
And
the
that's our
current-
major
in the
source of
current
revenue.
form.
It hurts.
It
It's not gonna, at some point, it's going off that financial cliff because.
And that's what's happening, right?
Yeah, and that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, the increasing residence is not necessarily
It's not
increasing
helping.
the revenue.
No, it's not helping,
No.
it's making it worse in
Right.
town.
And a
We
good
can't get
example,
that.
a good example of this is Rutland, with their boom in housing. There was a major issue, they needed a 2.5 override. With us, there may be, as you'll see later, this is all ending in me asking to work with a work group of people that are actual residents of the community to work on what would be best fit for a proposal.
Right.
We're not where Rutland White was,
Right.
but it's still
We will
not
be.
pretty. This is something we have to be talking about, but Hubbardston should know that they are not alone. Like, this is almost everywhere. It's a difficult conversation, it stinks, but it is happening all over the Commonwealth and all over the nation, with everything going on.
But why do they keep pushing this? Why does the state keep pushing for housing?
Because there's not enough to go around.
We understand that, but the towns can't afford to put these people through school.
It's not just school, it's also the drain
The
on.
roads, the police, the fire,
Yes, the
everything.
fire, everything.
Yeah, but everything
Yes.
falls on the town,
Yeah.
and we can't support it. The infrastructure cannot support their plan.
I don't know. I don't know how, there's no answer to that.
I think you're all leading to Nate's whole presentation.
They are.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. Expenditure history, education, everything else is growing, but not at the rate of education.
There you go.
I think I did the math, I have it in my email. I want to say that outside of education and debt and things like health insurance, there was a $17,000 increase across the board with everything else heading into FY24. That is essentially a budget cut.
What'd you say the number was?
17,000.
It's essentially a budget cut. When you're doing level service budgets and the cost of living is going up as fast as it is, asking departments to level fund is akin to a budget cut. And unfortunately, 2% is not equivalent to a raise nowadays. A cost of living adjustment is not a raise, which is something I'm hoping to look into this year as part of the goals outlined earlier. So with all this said, how do we address the deficit? Well, we have to be transparent and ensure our communications are poignant and relevant. We have to protect essential services, but ensure that the budget is not overinflated. And we have to have a balanced presentation of the situation. Stay away from using alarmist language and scary, just kind of doomsday terminology. One of the things you're gonna see in a future slide is that Hubbardston, like many communities in our region, does not have a good track record of passing the type of initiatives that I am going to be talking about shortly. But it is my belief that if done correctly, for the right reason, with the right messaging, we could potentially do something. What that something is, we'll have to figure it out as time goes on. With that, where this is going is me proposing the potential, looking into and doing our research on potentially having a ballot question to look into either a debt exclusion or a Proposition 2.5 override. There are 3 different types of ballot questions in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. An override asks voters to allow property taxes to exceed the Proposition 2.5 limit. A debt exclusion temporarily increases taxes for specific capital projects, and underrides are not what we're talking about. But an underride asks for a reduction in property taxes. Proposition 2.5 override, we do talk about this quite a bit. Proposition 2.5 limits property tax increases, and override allows exceeding the limit. Overrides are typically used to fund recurring expenses that exceed the allowed 2.5% increase. It's a way to secure additional funding for essential services and programs. Prior to, Heather, what was it, 1980?
Yeah, it's in the
Yes.
early 80s.
Prior to the early 80s, this type of problem did not exist. I wasn't there, but I understand.
Shut up.
But I understand why the Proposition 2.5 was implemented as a safeguard to government's overreaching. But at this point, we kind of seem to be on the other side of that situation, in which now it is limiting the towns and cities from getting to a point where they are financially stable.
So interestingly enough, some small communities, when Prop 2.5 came along, they actually, right before it was passed, they already felt bad for the amount they were taxing people, so they reduced their taxes. There was a community I was in Western Mass, they reduced their taxes right before Prop 2.5 passed. They've never been able to pass an override, never been able to catch up since.
Nope.
So,
What were they thinking?
you know, sometimes we always have to be mindful of, just cause we're doing something because we think it's a nice thing or a good thing to do, what's the long-term impacts and implications for those?
Never make it up. Right.
Another option to a Proposition 2.5 override is a debt exclusion. A debt exclusion is a temporary increase in property taxes for specific projects. It's a financing tool used for funding capital projects that wouldn't be feasible within the current budget. You can use this for essential projects that directly benefit the community. You can also use a debt exclusion for specific purposes such as operating budget expenses, but it is to be limited because it is essentially one-time revenue. So by going with a debt exclusion, although it is a easier initiative, you're not solving your long-term problems. You'll notice that I'm not throwing numbers around because the 3 people that I showed this presentation to with all my numbers stated that it was a bit too much. So there are numbers and they will be presented, but this is a very early conversation in that.
So Nate, and I think an important thing here is, you know, we don't generally hear of communities doing a debt exclusion for general operating
No.
expenses. It's exclusively used for capital. I mean, even if you could, people don't do it.
No.
Cause it doesn't, you know, when you try to build a cliff, right, it doesn't actually resolve the problem.
It just
It
pushes
just
it.
Band-Aids it for like 2 years or 4 years, the period of the time of the debt exclusion.
Yeah, this is like fire truck purposes, police car purposes kind of stuff.
Multi-year large project.
Yep.
Ballot initiatives history in Hubbardston. As you can tell, there are not many of these type of initiatives that have won. There are, of 50 plus, there were of 50 plus total, debt exclusion and 2.5 override proposals. 13 debt exclusions have passed, 0 overrides have passed.
Do you know what the total breakdown was, Nate? That was in my notes where you said 54, but you grouped them both together. Is there a way to break
Yeah.
them out? Cause I know I saw your tiny wording under all, but I don't think that's all 54.
Like the first,
I'm just
Ambulance
wondering,
took
of
like
that
3
54
times.
number, how many
Yeah.
were a true override and how many were a debt exclusion? Cause then we said only 13 debt exclusions passed, so
Yeah.
that's also the
In
question,
your
percentage of.
drive,
I'm going there.
Me too.
Yeah, where am I going?
select board,
Yeah. And,
2023 meetings,
yeah,
August,
yeah,
August 7th.
we're there.
already there.
Yep. And then new business information, historical data.
It's, okay, the Google sheet.
Yeah, that, the green tab there.
Oh, it doesn't like me.
So,
Well, it was green in the comment. Can you see it? No?
30 debt exclusions,
Hang on.
So 13 out of 30 was the
13 out of
passage
30,
rate.
and 24 overrides.
Wow, they-
0 overrides passed, and 13 out of 30 debt
So
exclusions.
just over 33% of debt exclusions
Yeah, it
passed.
was this one.
Oh, okay.
Do you want that?
Yes, please.
There you go.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Boy, a lot more people voted back then, huh?
In 2008, there was a real uptick.
So obviously I'm not gonna be able to analyze this in 30 seconds, Nate. Out of curiosity, did you happen to take a look and was there any trends as to the number of people who showed up versus the likelihood that it was gonna pass or not pass? Like, are you seeing that if more people showed up for the election, it passed, less people showed up for the election, it passed?
Let's look at it.
I mean, if you don't know that answer, by no means should you spend 20 minutes right now to
No,
find it.
No, I
You
do
can
not
get
know
back
that
to me
answer,
on
but I
that.
can show you relevant data.
Okay. But I think that's that's an important thing for us to know too, right? Cause you want that data, you wanna know,
If you get more people to show up, is it more likely to pass or is it more likely to fail?
and not to say that that's a strategy for
No.
things, but
Well,
if
I
you
know-
were to say that every time we had, more than 1,000 people show up, it passed, then that would be,
Wait,
a goal.
I don't think we've ever, have
I'm
we ever
trying,
had
I'm like
thousands?
wishful thinking here, Katie.
Lucky to get it.
Yeah, I know,
Quorum.
like
Yes.
seriously.
50.
Which one's winning?
Yes, there's,
Yes is D.
What was that for an election though?
So no, so like
Like
the
a
wins for
vote?
debt exclusion, it looks like, the first win was in 1990 that I'm showing on the chart here, it was like
Oh, that was like
270 people. But the debt exclusion that lost right before or after in 2016 had 800 or 942 people. So it looks like
Was that for votes though, or for the actual meeting?
no, this is for ballots,
Okay, so for,
ballot,
yeah,
at the,
voting.
voting box, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you looking for? A correlation between the number of voters and the passage percentage of?
I was just saying if, when more people, is it more people that show up and we have a win or less people show up and we have a win?
funny you should mention that, Chris.
Tim, go ahead. Oh, no, you go ahead.
Yeah, cause that's where I'm going. I'm going to that, I think there may be a correlation between the a number of
It
people.
sounds like that's what she's trying to figure out, to strategize how to get
Yeah,
Go ahead.
this
Yeah,
done.
I think it's a really good question and something we ought to understand, but I think we also have to be careful that to be able to draw conclusions from those numbers, we'd have to control for what the issue was, were they all just Quabbin votes?
Exactly.
And
and
By
kind of
far,
what
that's
the
what that pie
political
chart is.
mood in the community was at the time. I mean, back in the 1980s, there may have been much more resistance, cause Prop 2.5 was pretty new. And so I think it's gonna be very hard to,
Yeah. The people have changed too.
Yep.
In this
Yep.
town, we have turned over a lot of new residents, you know, people have moved, it's just inevitable. And also people change with age, even if you did live here, you know, like it's, yeah, they're like, it's okay now, you know, like I would
I
rather
got it.
have than not, you know?
and fewer kids in the schools, right?
Yeah, that too.
Not
In an
enough.
aging population.
Yeah, yep,
But to that point,
Yeah,
almost
go ahead.
50% of the 13 wins were for the school. That green part of the pie
It's 'cause
is
they
is
packed
school
the
wins.
election.
Pros and cons. Pros, ensure funding for essential services, prevent cuts to vital programs like education, public safety, and infrastructure. Cons, may lead to higher property taxes for residents, impacting affordability. And here's to the point Heather is currently looking at, potential timeframes for FY24. In March of 2024, there's going to be a presidential primary, which will offer a high turnout election, increasing chances of passing. The con of that is it would give us limited time for voter education and support building versus the other option, which is the May of 2024 annual town meeting. These are only this year's options, not to say that we're tied to having to do something like this year, because we are not, but
Well, also it's the primaries versus the actual president election in November, that'd give you a little bit more time and you'd still have a very high turnout, cause that
Yes.
is usually the highest turnout that we have.
if we were to do it in May and it did not go, you would see me relatively quickly talking about that election. Like,
Yeah, I know, but you can only, well,
You can
no,
do it.
yeah, I know, cause one of the ambulances, I think it was like the third time before we finally voted it in, the first replacing one from like
It's-
20 something years.
it's unfortunate, and I know I'm preaching to the choir at this table, but those at home need to realize that something needs to be done.
Absolutely. Yep.
Since coming here, the amount of people that have told me, hey, I'm not really interested in any industry, but don't raise my taxes. Alright, we have to,
There's gotta be something.
there's gotta be something in the middle to keep your government services running. What can we do to aid us in moving forward? I think it needs to be a team and community effort. A dedicated team of skilled staff and officials is essential for resolving the town's deficit. Their commitment and expertise will lay the groundwork for successful solutions. And that will come to my, not request, because since I'm framing it outside the parameters of the open meeting law, the structural deficit working group that I am looking to propose this evening would fall under the appointment of myself, so that it would not have to meet at night or post meetings. A working group can help a department head outside the parameters of the open meeting law. My thought process on this was having it consist of myself as chair, the treasurer collector, the accountant, the town clerk, the executive assistant, and 4 community members, including, what did I say? I forgot what I said.
Specific skills
And perspectives, but it was one,
That's the motion, that's it.
Finance,
Marketing.
business,
yeah, finance, marketing, or public safety, and student within the
business.
district. My colorful proposed action timeline is also right there. We will begin a public information campaign.
I thought you were gonna have to look at the board, Peter.
No,
He's like, nope.
So that's my request here. I know it won't be it can't be a vote to authorize or create a charge, but I would appreciate the just kind of honorary thumbs up of the board saying, yes, move forward with this, seek the residents'
So you don't want a motion
We,
to?
I would prefer we don't have a motion, because that
don't
would
want
make it, that would make it real.
Go for it, Nate.
That would make it
Do
real?
Okay. That makes
You don't want it
easier.
to be real?
I do not want to make people go to more meetings than they have to.
Okay,
Okay,
so yeah, no, I think this is a good idea.
Or have minutes, or.
definitely carry
Yeah.
the ball.
Yeah.
Let's see what-
Alright.
And just make sure your 4 community members are they make sure it's somebody, like people that have different perspectives,
Yes.
cause we have some that are like, you're not gonna get it through, then you have others like, yes, let's go. And we need balance, so you can, cause you can't have it all one-sided or you'll never get it through the other
And
side.
prior to telling anybody yes or no, I likely will send it to the select board. And also, seeing as there's no charge and they're just working with the town administrator, if we get 5 good applicants,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna tell them no.
No, yeah,
I-
you wanna come give ideas, come on.
Yeah.
I think you just update us, Nate, once you're up and rolling and you say we're doing well, or, oh gosh, we need more humans.
You got it.
I think at the core of this too is to, bottom line, getting that out the vote. Because my experience, based on the past 10 years, we were discussing earlier, attendance at these meetings. Like it or lump it, when I've noticed increase in attendance has been when a major, dollar item is on the agenda.
Oh, yes.
But that increase in attendance is not necessarily the people who would support it.
Well,
Right.
it's
You know,
also,
Yeah, I think we just touched on that a
They just
little
don't
while
count.
ago, right?
So I think the selling of this, getting that vote
Or
out.
doesn't necessarily mean better.
Right,
well, it's also getting out correct information. I can't tell you how many times in person, on social media or whatever, we've had to dispel incorrect information. Like I'll be at the bank and I was like listening to one guy rant and rave and I'm like, what are you talking about? None of that is real.
it's misinformation, yep.
Yeah, like none of this is
Because people
true.
believe everything
I
they
know.
read.
So
They don't,
it's,
but they don't do the footwork to figure out if it's true or
yeah,
not.
I know.
So,
And sometimes it actually boggles my mind. I'm like, oh.
just have somebody block it
Might be
from the
something that we
government.
might consider in terms of the overall planning, et cetera, prior to the actual town meeting, a few, if not more, public hearings.
Absolutely, there will be public hearings
Based-
involved,
With the idea that to teach
yeah.
the people and show them.
If you go and
Yeah.
look at the
Yeah,
action
reduction of the
plan
quorum.
that I had created in here, a lot of it is public hearings in general with different age brackets. Like, I believe that in order for something to pass, you need to hold a meeting over there and then kind of let them know ahead of time.
If you really wanna have some grandeur, you go in the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we're expecting big numbers.
But there will be a good amount of
That's what he meant.
opportunity for the public to get involved. That's why I wanted to do this working group anyhow, was because if I'm going to draft up a proposal, it's likely to be strictly based on numbers, where if there are people and residents involved, there will be more of a community feeling to it, to ensure that there are people that would actually be impacted by this. For those that haven't figured it out, like many people have, I don't know why so many people are going to the town of Hubbardston website, but they are.
Oh, they do, and then they find the wrong
Yeah,
information and
there
ask
is,
you the
there
question.
is
and I'm
a
like,
draft override
Okay.
calculator that I had
Oh, good heavens.
created based on FY 23 tax numbers. So let's say if we went for a $750,000 override and your home was worth $400,000, the numbers you're looking at in over the course of a full year are $485 or $121.25 a quarter.
That's a lot of money.
Could you put 325,000 in?
This-
That, the median, real estate value for FY '23 for Hubbardston is 325,000. That means half half of us have houses that are valued
Yeah.
more than that, and
Put
half
580 in there, would you please?
And the 400,000
Well, see, Peter, you just have
only
too much
applies to
house, sir.
26%
Okay?
of the
Just saying.
population.
That's on you, dude.
No, it's not 580, probably 570.
Even still. That's close enough.
I think that's a great idea, what you got
That's,
up there,
I'd have to
allowing
move, I
people to
definitely
do
have to
that.
move out, I am not paying that for taxes.
Like almost it's only an extra
$692.
$692 a year. That breaks down to what a
Right.
day.
I
figure
can't
out
make
yours.
more money.
Well, I get
I'm
that,
hyperventilating,
I
it's
am-
fine.
you can make more money.
I can't make more money.
Yeah, you can.
I'm on a fixed income and I'm a senior,
Side hustle.
okay? My side, already did that when I was younger.
Mr. Chair, I feel like we're going down a rabbit hole
Okay.
here,
Yes,
so
we
I
are.
think
Okay.
we landed where Nate's all set with what
Anytime
he
I talk,
needs.
everybody says, you're going down a rabbit hole.
Okay,
Oh, no,
Every
I
time I
said
bring
we,
something up.
we, Peter, we.
alright, we'll move on.
What's the kitty's fault?
Old business, is there any
She
old
was yelling at
business?
me. No.
Nate, do we have any old business as far as
No.
you're concerned? Okay. Then we'll go to the TA report.
I didn't know I was on
Mr. Chair, noting the time, noting the time and that there are no rushes on either of the policies I've presented,
Yes.
I would like to suggest just giving you guys 2 weeks to review them.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Thank
we'll,
you.
and we'll talk about them in,
We'll table them
yeah,
for the
we'll
next
table
meeting.
those for the next one. The policy working group has already given them a thumbs up. The reason there is a credit card policy on the table, for those that don't know, is because our previous treasurer collector had taken out the town credit card on her own social security number and that kind of stuff, and no one employed right now is willing to do that, and I don't think they should be forced.
Nope.
No.
So, we can review that in 2 weeks. I did change the formatting of my town administrator report to that of a e-newsletter. So, and in this first one, my wife told me that she thinks I really just sneaky wanna be a graphic designer. But,
Little bit.
yeah, but,
Wife, huh?
yeah,
It's too blocky.
it is quite blocky.
Yeah.
But if, just to quickly go through, we've begun collaborating with department heads to develop a streamlined budget and CIP process. It's going to be very Google-based instead of creating a lot of paper. I've learned a lot about the integration of Microsoft BI and Google Looker Suites into different programming that you can do with standard operating procedures. So that should be pretty good to watch out for.
I think it's the font you used.
I don't like the font either.
Yeah.
I Googled what is close to Calgary, and that is what came out. Executive Assistant Tony Walker has taken on the role, the crucial task of reviewing all past and present contracts. We will have a list, I will present it to all of you. We will also ensure that the contracts are put in the office Google Calendar so that we know when they are running out and that they are in the Laserfish program. Most of you were in attendance, but we went to the Greater Gardner Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting for Hubbardston Storage Solutions. They are a pretty cool, high-tech storage facility that has no staff on premise. So that was pretty impressive. For those that couldn't make it or want to learn more, there is a video on the Hubbardston YouTube page.
And you missed the hors d'oeuvres.
All
You
of
did
them.
miss the hors d'oeuvres, they were pretty good.
They were fancy.
The Hubbardston Hubbardston Fire Department recently put out some of their numbers for thus far this year, including 39 medical emergencies, 15 alarm activations, 10 service calls, 4 motor vehicle accidents, 2 electrical emergencies, 1 water rescue, 1 smoke investigation, 1 search for a missing person, and 1 mutual aid cover assignment, bringing the total number of calls for service for the year to date to 463.
Is that calendar or fiscal?
Calendar. Cause that would be real sad if it
Well,
was
most keep it by
between-
fiscal, that's why I was.
That's a lot,
Okay.
Yeah.
a lot.
I'm surprised,
More than
honestly,
one a
we
day.
don't have more water issues with the
Yeah.
amount of ponds and lakes
Yeah,
that we
and
have.
boats on
yeah,
the ponds,
Yeah,
yeah.
kayaks, kids
Yeah.
swimming, everything else.
Pitcherville Road paving project is well on its way. That should be going about another 2 or 3 weeks and then be good to go. As I stated previously, the policy review working group met and discussed the 2 policies that will be presented next week. We also did a prioritization of the financial and personnel policies that we will be reviewing over the next year. It was a good meeting. The employees that came are Candace Livingston, the town clerk, Tony Walker, the executive assistant, and Taylor Wilkinson, who is a EMT with the Hubbardston Fire Department. I attended a virtual briefing on July 20th to learn more about a bill that would create additional rural school funding. It is not close to the finish line, but anything that I can sort of put our support behind that would help alleviate some of the burden of a expensive education system will be great. We have a new MEMA representative. His name is Ray Farron, and he met with Judy O'Donnell and I last week. We had some great discussions on emergencies. Municipal aggregation, Francois and I met with them. That's moving forward too. Public Safety Building Committee is taking field trips all around to look at different newer public safety buildings and coming back to discuss what the wants versus needs of this community are. I have been meeting with Princeton and Rutland to talk about regional trash and recycling possibilities. We're meeting here on Thursday. Kathy and Travis were gonna come, but I believe Kathy is ill.
Yes.
Katie has done a good job with the summer concert series, so I said summer concert series is a hit.
Okay.
That has been wonderful. They
Isn't
have-
it Katie's a hit though?
Nah.
And summer concert series just benefits as a result
No, it's
thereof?
everyone that's coming and enjoying it is the hit.
Okay.
That's who's.
Well, they'd be the hits, cause then they're Flora.
Yeah, they're the hits.
Communications, this month I did interviews with Gardner Magazine and WGAW 1340 to discuss the latest happenings. That's something I do approximately every 2 months. If anyone's interested in joining, I'm sure
I haven't watched this one. Is there dad jokes in it?
No.
I'm just gonna.
No, they're
No,
not. And
there's none. I'm gonna watch it, so I'm gonna
The-
tell you.
Hubbardston headlines, I was supposed to record today, but Brittany was sick. The next guest on that is going to be the new Hubbardston Center School principal, Erin Cook.
Nice.
She has been very nice so far. We've had a couple of meetings discussing different things, such as the fact that the parking lot's gonna be a mess starting in 2 weeks, cause we have to reroute an entire elementary school of parents and children through our work parking lot.
I'm still telling you, the exit was
Yeah.
there when
Through
my
where?
son said.
Through here?
The exit.
Why?
Because
of their parking
they
lot?
can't go
Construction.
back down the road because of construction. Even when it's
Oh.
done, there's not gonna be a lane for them to fit in, and the buses are parked over there.
Disasters on Central.
The treasurer collector and assistant treasurer
Put your kids on
collector
the bus.
have been attending treasurer collector school. They take their exam in approximately 3 weeks. We had a great time at the groundbreaking for the town center project.
Mhm.
That's a nice picture of everybody with a shovel.
Chucking dirt.
I'm glad we were able to do that to acknowledge the past and present volunteers that were so involved in this project.
And Dan came back
Yeah.
also, which was good, that we could recognize him too.
I'd like to thank our first responders. The recent flooding in Hubbardston was challenging, And our first responders really rose to the occasion. The Hubbardston Fire Department, Police Department, and Department of Public Works worked tirelessly to keep the community safe and secure. They rescued stranded residents, managed traffic, and restored essential services. And that's a pretty wild picture.
Yep.
What street is that?
That's Main
That's Main
Street.
Street.
My
Is
husband
that
has
deep, huh?
video going through it. I would have posted it on Facebook, but he kind of swore on it a little too much. I was like, oh, I can't post that.
The bike lane for the project, is that going to be as we're looking down on the right side?
So wherever you see an 11-foot sidewalk, that's where the bike lane's gonna be.
Only reason I ask, I've had people, most recently in the last few days, now that the curbs have gone up, one actually put it bluntly, where the hell are you gonna put a bike lane?
Yeah,
This
there's not a
road
lot.
looks
Because they
nar-
think
this is
it's
a
gonna be-
narrow road
Listen.
right now, and
But it's not, it's a
It's not
multi-purpose sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's in the sidewalk,
sidewalk,
and that's
yeah.
what, well,
Okay.
they're thinking it's in the road.
No, it's a multi-purpose sidewalk which lasts
So it's gonna be
longer.
elevated?
Yeah.
Okay.
But at least it's gonna be flat for the first 10
No,
years.
I was worried it was gonna be like beside the sidewalk, and I'm like, Jesus,
No.
it's
So-
tight now out there.
No, so you know the Rotary in Gardner
Yeah.
by Big, like Burger King, like that. That's what it's gonna be, a big,
Oh,
huge,
okay.
wide,
Oh, good.
yeah. That's what that is.
I feel better about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I've done enough talking this evening, so for those interested in reading my preliminary plan for the capital improvement process, it's in there. That is all that I have for a report this evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right. We've tabled the policy reviews, matters not anticipated by the chair. Is there anything to be brought up? The clock has been updated, so we don't have to talk about that. Okay, public press, any questions?
You're the only
Motion to
public.
adjourn.
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned, next meeting is the 21st.